struggling and cheering on your fellow comrades. It's so important because it gives people the belief in themselves. I am a warrior. I am strong. I am resilient. That warrior mythos, it exists in every human being. But many of these first world things need to be erased to get to that warrior ethos inside. Erased. The wind, the trees, the mud, working together, running together, struggling together. It takes away all the noise.
Good morning, Spartans. We are live from Jacksonville, Florida for the first stop in the US National Series. 2019 race season is going to be off to a hot and fast start down here in Central Florida. And, of course, we have a lot of exciting racers here. Some of the best athletes in the world are gathered here today. They came for the unveiling of the new pro roster, and they're here to stay to compete for vital points in the point standings here for the U.S. National Series and podium spots. Prize money over $1 million up for grabs over the course of this season. I'm David McGinn, and I'm joined by 100-time podium finisher combined Kevin Donahue, and, of course, VP of Product for Spartan, Dave Watson. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, there are so many things to be excited about today. I cannot even curb my enthusiasm.
You've been waiting a long time for this.
I've been sitting in this booth singing country songs. We're down in Jacksonville. I got mosquitoes flying around my head, and I got VP of Product Dave Watson with us.
Rock and roll.
Tell us about a lot of the things that we're going to be seeing this year.
Have you got about 6 hours?
Yeah,
there's a lot
let's do it.
coming up. You know, I tell you, the best thing for me is just kicking this national series off. I mean, what an awesome course this is. It's fast, it's furious, like you said, Dave. Things going to heat up. You know, you and I went out on the course last night.
It took a good lap.
Magida set a blistering pace, and he told me we were going easy. But I tell you what, the course is a lot of fun, and we're going to see the best of the way the course will bring out the best of the best today.
I think what's most exciting about the athletes that we've gathered here is the depth of the field. It's not a top-heavy thing anymore. Now we're looking at fields that are going 10, 12, 15 deep with podium contenders. And Kevin, talk about some of these new faces that people may not be as familiar with. I think we all know about the Ryan Atkins, the Lindsey Websters, the people who have been here at the top. But we've got some new faces in the field who are going to be incredibly competitive. Yeah,
one of those people starts with, it has to be Tia Reagan. Tia Reagan coming in, she won one race last year down in Dallas, but she did it in such a dominating factor that it makes her somebody to really watch this year. Another one is Timmy Brand. She's someone who's been killing it out in California for a while. She's a mom. She's a city girl. She doesn't necessarily really like the country so much, but she loves doing Spartan. And then somebody, again, to watch out today for that is a new member of the pro team, Ashley Heller. She is a former U.S. developmental ski team athlete. She's a 20-time varsity letterman in high school because she could do every different sport. And she's a former pro track athlete, but she's just been on that cusp.
Anything else?
Yeah, she's just been on the cusp of being on the top 10 in the national series.
Can
and
we talk
just
about,
out of the camera, we just don't see her too much.
We need to talk about the fact that you have athletes like this who are scraping to get into the top 10 of the National Series. That's how deep this field is. I want to talk about the National Series briefly for a moment. We're going to look at the schedule. Up here, we've got February 23rd today. That's Jacksonville. Alabama is next. Another flat course that's going to pair with this one very nicely. Seattle again. Flat and fast, and then the hills come in SoCal, Big Bear, monstrous mountains in Utah as well, as the season seems to ramp up towards World Championships.
The elevation profile just basically increases, doesn't it, across the range of courses.
Dramatically.
Yeah.
And what's going to be incredible is how these athletes, the orders may mix up, but you're going to see some of those consistent faces near the top. Ryan Woods was rock solid all season long, as was Ryan Atkins, and you could see them 1-2 really far and away. Woods dominated this series last year. Killian, who's never missed a top 3 finish in one of these series, always a factor.
And that is going to be a tremendous storyline for this year. Robert Killian has been one mistake away in a lot of these U.S. National Series from winning the series. If he could put together a great season, he could win this.
And don't forget about Angel Quintero and Ryan Kent, great athletes in their own right who are factors. The women's field has been owned by Lindsey Webster. She's had a monopoly on championships the last few years, both of the last couple National Series as well as the World Championships last year. And Faye Stedding has consistently remained a factor, although it hasn't been as close as we'd hope it would be. Now we're seeing a few new faces emerge. I think Nel Rojas, for example, going to be an incredibly powerful influence on this sport over the next few races.
Yeah, Nel Rojas won the first race this year out in California, beating Nicole Miracle, and doing that without failing an obstacle. She's a 2:31 marathoner who's built like a CrossFit athlete. She is strong, she is fast, and she's here to make noise on the Spartan circuit and today.
Is this an ideal course for her when we look at how flat and quick it is? As a runner, that's probably going to be a very, very strong thing for her. Looking back at the legacy of this series, Lindsey Webster has been there consistently. It's Lindsey Webster and company every single year.
Let's not forget, too, signing as a Spartan Pro for the very first time this year. Right, yeah, exactly. So, you know, Webster all over the board there, Ryan Atkins also.
An argument could be made that she is the most accomplished OCR athlete of all time. That's what's so incredible. And
yeah, I think that's
just
a fair
getting
call.
started.
No, I think that's a fair call. She is just starting, and her mindset is such that she's very fresh. You know, she sees that she's just ramping up.
She and Ryan, for those of you at home who don't know, they are a married couple, Ryan Atkins and Lindsey Webster Atkins, and they are both hungry despite all the accomplishments that they have had. But you saw some other big names up there. You saw Ryan Woods, the defending champion, and talk about a guy who runs angry. That is a perfect example of someone who does. And, of course, the great Hobie Call, the Michael Jordan of our sport. As you look out on this course, you can see a little bit of wetness. It's going to be a little bit of mud in there, but it's some deep spots of mud, a lot of packed sand,
this part
and a lot of
fun.
deep water.
The shots you're seeing right now is a motocross park that you're seeing here, and the course starts off by going through this section, and it's not as soft as you'd think. Like, it's quite hard packed. So coming down some of those kickers and jumps, you know, there is the ability to roll an ankle, especially if you're bombing it very quickly. It's a little bit deceptive.
It is a very undulated, craggly, hard pack over in that first mile of the course, and then it opens up into some trails, not quite single track. You've got some mud, some deep water that's going to be like shin deep, maybe even deeper. There are some parts later in the course that'll be knee deep that they'll be running through for long stretches. So we have a huge array of terrain, but yet the speed will remain incredibly high because there are essentially no hills after that first mile.
And as well, there's also going to be a lot of palmy vegetation in the woods that's going to be tearing up their legs.
31 obstacles over the course of this race, and I believe the first 15 are crammed into the first 2.5 miles or so on this course, which means the start of this race is going to have a lot of leapfrogging of athletes. It's going to be fast and furious, and no one should break away from the field early without anyone making mistakes.
Carries are early, too, in the course. So,
yeah,
you know, there's definitely going to be a physical load placed early, and then there's, you know, quite a long section of running. So, you know...
that combination can be very cramp-inducing. And now Steve Hammond is going to be joining us to break down the course. We're going to be talking to him all week long. But, of course, Steve, take it away.
Well, what a morning we have here in Jacksonville. The buzz is going off in the village over there. It's really, really exciting. Talked to a few of the athletes this morning, and they are really, really excited to go and get out on this course. Now, the course is super unique. Super unique. We have 2.5 miles. The first 2.5 miles is going to be really, really intense. And it's going to be so intense because we've got 14 obstacles. So that's going to be a really exciting part. Usually what happens with the Spartan Race is a couple of miles where they get a little bit of distance from each other. But here it's going to be quite a fight for the men and the women here in the elite heat. So that's going to be quite an exciting part to see what unfolds a little bit later onto the mucky and messy part of the course. when about mile 4, I think, although it's going to be very flat, I think the temperature is so warm here. It's like 70 degrees. So a lot of people are coming from winter training, so that's going to be a little bit unique. Coming out here and then racing in humidity where not a lot of people are used to it. So that's going to probably take its toll on a little bit, maybe mile 4, mile 5, when they're like running through sort of knee-deep water. And yes, it is a fast course, but I think we will see some tired legs towards the end. We've got some awesome obstacles. They're a little bit slimy this morning just from the dew and the moisture here. Could be a game changer. We will see how it unfolds. Can't wait. Back to you, you guys in the booth. Super excited here to chase these elites.
Well, thanks a lot, Steve. And of course, I want to point out that Steve Hammond, not only an amazing race manager and an incredible sideline reporter, but also one of the 200 athletes that was signed to the pro roster. He earned it. He ran an incredible season last year. He's going to be rabbiting the race, running with a camera today. So a big thanks to Steve for all the efforts that he's put in.
That's the thing, Dave. You earn the spot, you get the spot. Doesn't matter who you are, where you are. Yeah. If you perform, you get the pro jersey.
Well, if anybody watched our coverage last year, he was with all the athletes running these races. You have to have a world-class athlete to chase these world-class athletes.
Absolutely.
Now, you guys saw Steve Hammond mention and highlight a few athletes, and we saw it up on the screen briefly. And I want to talk about who are our main contenders today. And we've got a men's list up here on the screen right now. You can see Ryan Woods, Ryan Atkins, and Robert Killian. Of course, these probably are the big three in a lot of people's minds.
Woods is coming in hot. He spoke to Spartan recently and said, you know, you want it, you got to come and get it.
And then on the women's side, we have Lindsay Webster, Rebecca Hammond, Faye Stenning, but I think a few others we talked about. Rebecca Hammond is the one that I want to highlight right now. Burst onto the scene last year.
Yeah. Second place in North American champs.
Second place at North Americans, and people said, is this a fluke?
Yeah.
And then?
Second place at Tahoe.
And then second place at Tahoe.
Yeah.
And she has admittedly said, I am not a mountain runner. I am a speed runner. And we're out here on a flat course. She's going to be dangerous.
I've had some chances to spend some time with her outside of Spartan as well. And I could tell you that this woman is one of the fiercest competitors with ice water in her veins as you'll ever see. There's not going to be a stage that's going to intimidate her. And it's going to be really interesting to see if she could hold up that intensity for the entire duration of the US National Series. Because last year, we did not see her until Utah. She came in like 6th place under the radar and then exploded at West Virginia.
Let's not forget she's studying at Harvard as well. She's doing medicine at Harvard. You didn't hang out at Harvard, did you?
By the way.
She didn't take it to class or something, did she?
The pressure of a Spartan race is going to be a lot less than going into surgery. This is admittedly so, but this is sport, and we all know we put pressure on each other.
Her emergence on the scene has been a huge thing, very similar to me in terms of how John Yatsko emerged years ago as this like strange genius who came out of nowhere and was incredible at this sport immediately. And look at that amazing view of what will be one part of the course. I believe that's the sandbag carry. And we're going to be running through that, a full Spartan helmet.
Another great story that I wanted to highlight today after getting off of Rebecca Hammond is the actual comeback of Rose Wetzel.
Yeah, you were talking to me about this morning. It's a pretty amazing story to go from the top female in the sport, having a few injuries, then having a child, as some of these other great athletes have emerged. And now the comeback has begun where she feels fast and strong like she hasn't felt in years. I was talking to her yesterday. She is ready to compete with the top women again.
I mean, she's in her 30s. Think about this. This is the first time we've had a woman in her prime have a child and then come back and try to get back into her prime. It's very reminiscent of Serena Williams in tennis right now. And people who don't know Rose that are just getting to the sport, she was a dominant performer. She was one of the top 2 women in the sport and then had a child right in the center of that. So the question is whether she could get back to that top spot. And the fact is she could be better than she was 4 years ago and still not even be in the top 10 in the U.S. Series now because it's so deep.
That's a fact, but her track speed should be a factor here. She's one of a handful of incredibly quick athletes over a 5K course.
Remember, too, it's a pattern, right? You know, in endurance sports, particularly if women move away, have a child, come back, quite often their performance increases rather than decreases. It's a known thing in trail running.
And if you would have seen her in the festival area this morning, she's as fit looking as I've ever seen her. Let's see if that translates in the course.
And so, speaking of training, speaking of fitness, take a look at a little package about training.
That's right! Unlike most competitive racing, a Spartan race tests its athletes across multiple disciplines, terrain, and dozens of demanding obstacles. Being a relatively young sport, the jury is still out on exactly how to train for such a varied and unpredictable set of challenges that make up a Spartan race.
When you train for your sport, pick the top 5 things that are the most important, and those are the things that you focus on in your training. So for me, it was like being able to climb hills, like being able to run technical terrain, grip strength. And that's the thing about this sport, is there's way more than one thing that you always have to be focusing on.
We're all training for Spartan racing, but I feel like, I don't know, I'm more training for Palmerton-like races, whereas Faye's probably more training for flatter races, because that's where the top speed comes in. Yeah. Alisa's probably training for the downhills.
That's all I do, is downhill. It's easy to be like, okay, like she's winning, I have to do exactly what she's doing. But you have to remember, like, we're all individuals. We all do our own training. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses and things we need to work on. But it's finding like what's going to work for you specifically, you know, that's going to get you up there.
And welcome back, everyone, to Jacksonville, Florida, for the first stop in the U.S. National Series. I'm David Magida, joined once again by Kevin Donahue and Dave Watson. We have an incredible event in store for you today. The men's start kicks off just in a few moments. All these athletes are fresh. All these athletes are ready to kick it off with an incredible start to the year. And, I mean, I'm incredibly excited to see how their off-season training impacts this particular race and how this terrain and this course.
Depends on the off-season. It depends on how you define off-season too, though, right? So take a look at someone like Ryan Atkins, ran the Ultra World Championship. You know, technically it wasn't that long ago, right? I mean, December 8th. So his off-season's been considerably shorter than, say, Woods.
Much, much shorter. And Woods, though, one of the things that we talk about all the training, a lot of our athletes have been training in cold weather climates. You come down here. Now, right now it's a little overcast, but when the race starts, who knows how much sun, how much humidity is going to be out there. How is that winter training out in that cold weather going to hurt them when they come down into a course like this? It's pretty flat, that's hot, that is humid. Will that affect them with the temperature changes and blow some of these athletes up? One man that probably won't affect, though, is Ryan Woods, who you highlighted earlier, who's been out in Hawaii for like the last 2 weeks. So he's been running hard all winter, and now is coming out of a tropical climate into another one. It really meets his advantages.
I look at a guy like him and Mark Batres as people that are going to really take this flat course and just absolutely attack it with this really open, quick speed, high turnover. This is what they're looking for. Mark Batres has been one of those guys that's one step away from being a great from being like one of the greatest athletes out here, but he's had a few little bits of struggle along the way. We're looking for him to clean those up this year. Now, Jacksonville is home to more than 40 miles of hiking trails, the abundant parks, ecological preserves, and waterways in Jacksonville, as the locals refer to it, in Jax, provides an unforgettable opportunity to relax in nature's playground. Home to the largest urban park system in the entire nation, visitors can experience the ultimate coastal eco-adventure in Jacksonville. You should check this place out, man.
Look at that!
It is unbelievable.
Look at the shot of that food. We had a great dinner last night. It's like 7:30 in the morning here, but I'm starving just looking at that. It was a brilliant dinner last night here in Jacksonville.
It was, and right on the water, the beautiful. We took this walk down. Right along the water, there's a pathway where you actually, the sidewalk goes beneath the level of the water, so the river is above you. It was a very cool experience.
We took this walk, Kevin, just me and Dave.
Two guys right on the beach. Walk. I mean, that's
he wouldn't stop talking about Atkins.
Now, as you can see, the elite men are lining up at the start line. There's a number of guys that we've got to keep an eye on, not just Ryan Atkins and Robert Killian, the dark horse, and Ryan Woods, all the Ryans, the Kents. But, of course, Mark Batres, who I mentioned, Ryan Kempson is a man to keep an eye on. He loves the flat and fast. He's an incredible turnover machine in terms of how quick his legs roll. He's smooth, possibly the smoothest looking runner in the field when you watch him. And last year was his first year. Last year was his first year of really training like a runner. Yeah. And we saw a huge jump. You're going to see another big jump in him over the course of this year. He's so efficient when he runs. It's incredible. Kirk DeWint, another man to keep an eye on. And Brian Gawiski, who lives, I believe, in North Carolina still, a huge factor ran incredibly well in Asheville a couple years ago, and a big factor as well, I think, if you look at his consistent body of work.
I mean, that's not to say that there's even more guys. I mean, we're talking so deep. I have so many things written down. There's one.
Literally, you have a book.
I literally have to have a book in front of these people.
Yeah.
There's one man out there today, 23-year-old Johnny Luma Linda. He used to be on these U.S. developmental soccer programs until he got burnt out. So then he got into college track. And this man is fast. This man is athletic. He's well-rounded. He's another person we'll be looking out for in this race.
I'll tell you something about Johnny. I'll tell you something about Johnny. I was on a plane flying from, it was somewhere in France after the last European Championship.
He took third at Euros.
Yeah, right. And I was sitting there, and Johnny Lima's in the seat in front of me, and he's got a big check stuffed up the side next to the window. And you know, we got chatting. And the thing is, this guy is just an excellent mountain runner. So, you know, put him on a flat like this, he's going to accelerate, definitely.
Wow, so we look at him as a huge factor today. Also, I've heard rumors of John Yatsko making a reemergence.
It is not a rumor, because I just saw him run right past us.
So if John Yatsko is here, we're talking about one of the fastest pure runners in this field. He is going to be dangerous today.
What sort of stats are we talking, Dave?
We're talking NCAA. One of the best cross-country programs in the NCAA for the last few years. Northern Arizona, I believe he ran at, where he also coached for them for a little bit. He's going to be low 14 5K guy when he is fit, I believe. Mid-14s.
Yeah, that's fast.
You want to hear stats on Johnny Yatsko?
Yeah.
He's also an engineer.
Yes.
A licensed masseuse. A world-class ballroom dancer.
Wow. All going to help him here,
They're all
the
forms of engineering, aren't they?
Oh, and he's also a grad student at Columbia studying Greek philosophy.
If you want to know anything about John Yatsko, and at home this is kind of fun, he got on his bike and rode to Alaska. Okay? Like,
yeah.
He is a unique individual. Discomfort doesn't bother him. He likes all the simplicities in life.
He's a Spartan.
He likes to race.
He's a Spartan.
He's just disciplined racer.
Yeah.
So his reemergence is going to be incredibly exciting for the field because he's going to be able to push tempo with the guys like Woods, that kind of speed. And as we look forward towards this race, again, it's going to come out very hot, very fast. I'm expecting blazing pace that's going to put a lot of guys at red line in the first mile and a half.
So that's a really good point, and this is what I'm thinking. There's going to be competitors there that don't expect how high that heart rate is going to peak hitting those jumps and those kickers because, you know, they look relatively easy, you know, because, I mean, they're not that high, right? But the fact is you're going up and down and up and down and up and down for the first, I'd say, mile. That's a heart rate spike situation for sure.
And they're very sandy, so that's going to absorb some of their power. It's going to require more stress on the hamstrings. Another thing that's going to do that, too, is they're going to be running from very hard-packed sand, like you said before, into these muddy little bogs. So then all of a sudden, they're going to have to lengthen their stride, go into almost of a hike. It's going to be very difficult for them to maintain that pace the entire time. And one of Stevie Hammond's hits earlier was about that gauntlet in the beginning of the race. They're going to head out really fast, but they're going to hit a lot of these rhythm-breaking obstacles. So it's going to hold back, I believe, the actual really, really good runners. It might be an opportunity for a guy like Ryan Atkins, who generally starts slow, to pick it up on the obstacles early and be more of a lead than he usually is in a race like this.
I'd be very surprised to see him out in front early. It tends to not be the way that Atkins likes to race. He tends to like to come from behind. I'm just not sure this is the type of course where coming from behind is an option when we have so many open miles on the second half. Front-loaded obstacles on this course, a huge portion in those middle 3-4 miles with very little obstacle, very dense running terrain, and then all of a sudden we get a little gauntlet right towards the finish again in the final mile with lots of obstacles again, lots of winding trails too. So it will slow down the overall pace in the woods in the back half.
Don't forget too that when we talk about obstacles on this particular course, that it's not just the Spartan man-made obstacles that's the slowdown of that rhythm. It's that black water, swampy stuff that we're talking about, right? You know, that ankle deep, shin deep stuff. You know, when just as you start to get a rhythm, boom, you hit the water again. You know, it really slows you down.
That and the introduction of a few new obstacles that some of these athletes have yet to encounter before. I'm talking about things like beater, which comes in the last mile of that race. If you're used to monkey bars and you jump up to beat her, they are moving now.
Let's talk. Let's talk about beater for a second. Yesterday we went out and you know, you jumped up. I mean, you're obviously a fantastic athlete. You're a Spartan Pro yourself. It's not easy, right? Transitioning from the spinning beater to a very high bar.
Before we get into beater, before we get into some of these other obstacles.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I want to see a little bit about the first set of champions in the U.S. National Series from 2016. Take a look.
I think the fact that coming into every race, it was, you know, anybody's game, really speaks to the level of the athletes competing, and it's really cool to be a part of that. Knowing that I won the first ever U.S. Championship Series was just a great feeling. It was something that I've worked towards for many, many months, and there's been a lot of racing, a lot of traveling, a lot of hard battles, and for it to all kind of come together and for me to take the victory, it's just, you know, awesome. It's a euphoric feeling.
Crossing that finish line and knowing that I won the series took a little bit of time to sink in. My goal was to see how well I could do and how far I could get. There's been a lot of work that's gone into winning this series. It feels pretty amazing. I don't know if I'm the best in the sport yet. We'll see at World Championships.
Welcome back, everyone. You just saw a highlight of Lindsey Webster and Ryan Atkins, and we were just laughing at the comment that Lindsey Webster made, which was, of course, I don't know if I'm the best in the sport yet, and I don't think it can be denied anymore.
Coming off a World Championship win.
Yeah, coming off a World Championship. This is 3 years ago she said that. I don't think anyone would debate it now.
Truly the matriarch of the first family of OCR.
It's a great way of looking at it. We always talk about them as the first family of OCR, and just wait till their kids start racing. They don't have any yet, but they will. If we look back at the U.S. National Series over the last 3 years, you can see that Lindsey Webster's name is always up there. 3 National Series titles to her name and a World Championship, a couple World runner-up finishes as well. It is quite the resume. She just makes it look so easy. What's incredible is how every time she shows up, we look at her and we say, I don't think this is the day, and then she somehow ends up crossing the finish line first.
Well, it's like Tiger Woods back in the day. It's basically her versus the field. And because she's so good, we actually have to try to nitpick to find any small hole in her game. And every single year, she tightens her game up and improves. As you're watching National Anthem right now, we've actually just seen Rebecca Hammond run by, and she's looking strong.
Just off the plane from Boston as well. She had a class the day before the race. So.
And they are doing the National Anthem right now, so if you're at home and you're watching and you want to pause briefly, that's what we'll do. All right, welcome back, everybody, and apologies for anyone if we missed the start of that National Anthem. Of course, we are always here to pause briefly to pay our respects. But as we continue on, we want to talk about Rebecca Hammond, who just ran by. I think her and Nell Rojas, the two of them, are the biggest threats to Lindsey Webster today, and Nicole Miracle if she puts together the race that we all think she can.
Nicole Miracle on a course like this runs incredibly well. She did well at a course that was similar to this in Chicago last year, and she generally gets off to fast starts in this series. So, like you said, I really think she's going to be a major threat, not only today, But as we move forward to some of the other races we have, because Alabama is going to be somewhat similar to this, and then we start stepping it up in Seattle, where she has that game not only on the flatland running, but also on these new sets of obstacles, like you mentioned before, such as the beater.
Okay, so the men's field is up there at the start line, ready to go. Who is going to be the person that sets the tone early, takes us out fast?
Woods.
Woods is coming out hard. We talk about how he's running so angry lately. And we mentioned Rebecca Hammond, not to go back to that briefly, and I will come back to Ryan Woods, and we'll see him in a moment. But Rebecca Hammond burst on the scene last year, and those of you at home who are wondering a little bit about her, now's your opportunity to find out.
I am 26 years old. I grew up mostly in Northern California. As a kid, I did the sport of equestrian 3-day eventing, so I was mainly like a horseback rider. And then in high school, I did track. I was a 400-meter runner, and then in college, I moved up to the 800 and the mile. I ran a couple years post-collegiately, and then in med school, I was like, just do med school. At Harvard now, I am a fourth-year medical student. I'm going to go into emergency medicine, and it all kind of comes together. So I discovered obstacle racing 2 years ago, and it was really fun. I was just doing it with friends, so it was, you know, really low-key. But I was like, this is really great. Like, I could do this. I took 2 years off from running and like didn't have any kind of competitive thing, and I think I missed the competition. I am definitely a competitive person, yeah. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So because it's my fourth year, that gives me like 2 to 3 months of sort of playtime that I can use flexibly. That gives me some months where I can do focus training. I do enjoy the unknown factor in obstacle course racing. I love the unexpected. I love variety. I love not knowing what's happening. I'm kind of a last-minute person. I think I'm quite intense. I can like shut off and kind of focus on things, which actually is good in medicine because sometimes you really have to kind of like shut off people to save their lives. So in obstacle course racing, the ability to focus does help because you sometimes ignore the pain. It's like, ow, this hurts, but whatever, just go. It definitely helps to be able to kind of go through pain without really thinking about it too much. The women are awesome. They're all like so humble and work hard and don't try and play it off. I just see them as like such incredible athletes, and here I am next to them. It's amazing.
And of course, Rebecca Hammond, the newest star of the sport. I think huge personality. We are so excited to see her take on a new year, now not the rookie.
I find it really interesting to look at the psychology of athletes like Rebecca because, you know, with the Harvard medical, you know, student background, and then, you know, becoming a rising star in the sport of OCR, you know, you see these people crop up from time to time, these sort of what you quote unquote overachievers, but they really sort of go together. It's a remarkable thing, and I think as humans, as Spartans, we'll be studying that for a long time. You know, what makes these people tick, and how can she be just so good at so many different things?
And if you see this picture-in-picture frame down here in the lower right-hand corner right now, the big thing to notice is a little bit different on the video quality. We're going with rabbits there. They're going to be shooting cell technology back at you. They're going to be running alongside these athletes for as much as you can to give you at least eyes and ears on this field for the longest period possible. So it's time to lay it on the line, guys. Who do we think is going to win this thing?
I'm going to Nicole Miracle.
We're going to talk about
right
the men's
out of the
field.
gate.
The men's field.
Men's field right now? Okay. I'm going Ryan Woods.
Okay.
But he's going to have to battle Ryan Atkins all the way to the end on this, followed by Robert Killian.
Okay, Dave?
Atkins, Woods, Kent.
Wow. Big, huge change for me. I'm going to say Ryan Woods at 1. And then let's curveball this thing a little bit.
Are you sure?
I'm going to take some risks, guys. John Yatsko at 2. And then Killian at 3. With Mark Batras running one of his better races we've also seen pushing the field. I don't think this is the day for Atkins, not the right course for him. But then again, every time I count him out, I end up eating my words. And, of course, Robert Killian is, you know, Deadly.
I'm playing the percentages. I'm definitely going to be keeping Atkins in there myself.
Okay, so we have the men at the start line, for those of you wondering. Last few little tweaks to the course, making sure that everything is marked as well as it can be. But they just got their intro in terms of from the race director. They're ready to roll. They're ready to race. And this is the first race in the U.S. National Series from Jacksonville. 8-ish miles, 31 obstacles. I got 8 exactly on my watch when I measured it yesterday. Of course, maybe you lose a couple hairs on that measurement on GPS when you're winding through the woods. But this is a perfect start to the year, flat and fast.
And send him out of the gate right now as well.
Right out of the gates. You can see our rabbit up front really pushing pace. So what we'll see is Ryan Woods immediately setting the tone, setting the pace. He wants to put the field in an uncomfortable position from the get-go. He doesn't think there's anyone that can run with his speed on a flat terrain.
And he'll do that at any race. We saw what he did in the first race last year in San Jose, how he took it out, and he took it wire to wire that day. Let's see if he could do it today.
There were 2 huge steep climbs in the start of that course that year, or for that race last year. This will be a little bit different.
Watch these athletes power over those hay bales.
Straight on the roll.
Ryan Kent, who's now in second position, make a huge move past Ryan Woods and a few others. Woods is by far the best runner in the field, but obstacle proficiency-wise, he's nowhere near the top. And sometimes that's the bane of his existence is he's a little more methodical going through obstacles, even something as simple as clearing a hay bale. And sometimes it leads to him failing obstacles, which leaves other guys opportunities to steal races from him.
These are the different ways that athletes attack this sport, though, of course. You know, some will attack it from a runner's perspective. Some will attack it from a strength and upper body perspective. You know, I guess there are different ways to sort of skin the cat.
There are, when you're at this level, it is often about efficiency, getting in and out of obstacles without wasting energy, but the best guys can also do it at a high speed.
And what we also noticed, too, was because of that first obstacle being so close to the beginning of the race, right? Ryan Woods took it out hard, and then bang, the second they hit that hay wall, he got picked off by a couple people such as Ryan Kent. So the obstacles that they're going through right now are already starting to break up the rhythm of the faster guys.
And look how spread out this field has gotten in the first minute and 45 seconds. You can see that the real contenders are up near the front. You can see Killian, Atkins. I have a few. That's Mark Batris, maybe. That's pushing the pace early, as well as Ryan Kempson and Ryan Kent, who we mentioned before.
Look at Woods. He is setting a very, very quick pace to start off with.
So smooth.
And Atkins is right there. He's not letting them go. Atkins is in 6th place right now. He just started up that little berm.
More than anyone, Ryan Atkins will run his own race. He will not let them dictate, but there's a rule when it comes to competitive endurance racing, and that is also don't lose contact. If you lose contact, it becomes very easy for that gap to increase dramatically. You need to at least maintain that line of vision.
Don't forget, too, and that's a great point, because earlier we were talking about the sandbag carry through a very, very narrow course, but basically wide enough for one person. So losing contact could be disastrous as they come up to the sandbag carry in about a mile.
2 men that are keeping contact right now are Ryan Kempson and Robert Killian. They're not letting them get away either.
And I believe that's Mark Batris out in front right now.
That is not Mark Batris.
Who is that?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first dark horse.
It is a dark horse. The pace that's being set right now is pretty high and comfortable. But again, I look to Ryan Woods to run the pace that he wants to run. I think he's trying not to overrun early while still maintaining pressure on the field. And the man I mentioned before, who I think is the smoothest looking runner in the field, Ryan Kempson, running right on his heels.
This is just a bit of cat and mouse right now, right? So I mean, we're so early on in this race. I mean, yes, it's only 8 miles, relatively speaking, but look, I'm not worried at all. If I was Ryan Atkins right now, I'm not worried at all. I'm just gonna just keep it at arm's length. Look, Atkins is just looking pretty smooth. He's not gonna red line right now and sort of blow it all early.
I want to point out that all they did just now was jump over 2 walls, and yet the physical exertion, the toll that takes on your body is dramatic. You just watched Ryan Woods immediately zip back up into first position again, from the simplicity of just having climbed one wall or 2 walls.
Cast your eyes back. You won't see it on the shot right now, but when you'll see in about 5 seconds, you'll see Robert Killian coming down that hill. He's in the center of the screen right now with the longer compression tights on. He's looking a little bit sluggish, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's been surprising to see the dark horse at the front. That's not Luna Lima. Who is that? We're going to try and get information on who is pressuring the field right now. But for anyone to come out of the gates in the first 5 minutes and pressure Ryan Woods like this, he can run.
It's a bold statement.
Yeah, it's a bold move in the first race of the series.
Yeah.
But what we've said about a lot of these athletes is that they don't know any better to be afraid of some of the talent that's out here. The people have been doing it for years.
Could be a good thing.
It's a great thing.
Well, we saw that
Sean
with Robert
Yatsko
Killian
right
very
there.
early.
Usually we're used to long flowing locks, but Yatsko right there ahead of Kirk DeWint, a few other big names. Do we have a Glenn Race in the race today?
I believe Glenn Race is not here. And that would not be Glenn Race. And we're coming up to our first upper body grip strength obstacle here. 3 things that the athletes are going to have to do here is manage the moisture on those bars and get across quickly without falling. Remember,
of course, this is the
burpees.
monkey bar, and the best move, if it is wet, is to take a reverse grip with your lead hand. One hand facing inward, your lead hand, your other hand facing forward. That's the simplest technique in order to get through a wet bar terrain or wet bar on the monkey bars.
You know, David, with that many athletes on the bars, too, you also have to worry about the traffic of getting kicked by another athlete while you're up there. That is actually Mark Batres, who just entered the monkey bars, and he's way back already at an early part in the race.
It is, but it's 15 seconds. It's early.
Yeah, it's early. One thing you can also notice on that monkey bars shot that we just saw is that everybody's going kind of going for the double grip, like one hand, because it is slippery. There's been a lot of fog and dew out there early. So.
That was Ryan, and Ryan, by the way. Ryan Kempson, followed by Ryan Woods, followed by Ryan Atkins as the men make the Herc hoist. And this is a huge – this spreads the course out more than anyone. You can see Ryan Atkins just annihilated that hoist. He's got a little more strength and weight than a Ryan Kempson, than a Woods, and you saw him put a few seconds, move from second position easily into first, pass on the Herc hoist.
And Ryan Kempson, like you said, you're talking about his running form. He took it out hard after that Herc hoist. People don't realize he was a very good high school football player. He's also a very strong, well-rounded athlete, so he's not just this fast runner. So to have that kind of glide and the strength is a rare combination.
I believe we're talking about Ryan Kempson, who's also an amazing basketball player in high school. Okay, so as they enter the rolling mud, you can see that we have Ryan Woods, Ryan Atkins, Ryan Kempson all competing right now, and that's Ryan Kent joining them, the 4 Ryans all together, and Steve Hammond's in the field. He's going to take us through a little blow-by-blow of what's experiencing right now.
Absolute chaos out here on the first couple of miles. As predicted, this is just tremendous racing. We got Ryan Atkins leading the charge with pretty much everyone behind him. It's going to be really interesting. They set off at about a 5-minute mile pace, just to give you an understanding of how fast it actually is. The pace is ridiculous. Now they're into a bit of an obstacle, eccentric. We've got rolling mud, we've got barbed wire, we've got dunk wall and sandbags all coming up right now. It's really interesting. Ryan Kempson has just gone for it on the barbed wire, and this is where you can really capitalize on those vital seconds. But are people going to blow their legs up in here, and the heart rate might raise too high? We will see. It's really intense. It's like they're attacking it like a sprint. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to see how it turns out. This is incredible. Back to you guys.
Dizzy coming through that. There are other issues with not just getting dizzy, but fatiguing certain muscle groups, fatiguing your hips too much coming through laterally, and you want to mix it up. Crawl a little, roll a little.
Roll one side, roll the other. Yes. It's a good way to get rid of the spinning head syndrome. Yes. A lot of people actually don't know that. If you're out there and you're going to do one of these races, switch sides.
So you can see Ryan Kempson came ready to work today. We saw him in the second race of the year last year in Seattle. He set down a blistering pace and nearly took that race. A few snafus towards the second half of that race. I think he went out maybe a little too hard, but his fitness, he says, is higher this year than it was last year. He thinks he can maintain this for the entire 8 miles.
He had a hiccup last year as well in Minnesota in the first race, the second race of the Mountain Series, rather. He crushed his finger underneath one of the Atlas balls and was injured for the majority of the season, and it cost him a lot of valuable training time. So this season, he's coming in strong, he's coming in fast, he's put all that behind him, and you're seeing it now. He is running out there completely fearless.
And the thing about Ryan Kempson is he managed to complete all of his obstacles last year when he had that broken finger, that crushed finger, by Riggs, for example, by slipping a chicken wing, an arm through the ring, which is an amazing way to complete an obstacle.
he actually had a chicken wing the entire rig in Dallas. It was the week after he hurt that finger, and it was the only way he could complete the obstacles was by doing that chicken wing.
Something that a lot of open racers and maybe age groupers who are watching don't realise how effective it can be, right, Kevin? You know, I mean, you've used it pretty much all the time in your 100+ podiums to get across the monkey bars. You chicken wing that thing, basically get the joint in your elbow over the top of the bar.
Yeah, I mean, Bracken and I came up with that actually in a race that David Magida was in North Carolina a number of years ago because of icy monkey bars. You couldn't feel your hands. You had to come up with a different way to adapt. And right now we have an adapted sandbag carry with the Spartan helmet. You're getting this great drone shot of seeing all the athletes weave in and through it.
Awesome, and you know, this is the point I made before, right? It's basically wide enough, you know, for maybe 2 people at the top left there, but there are sections where, you know, coming around the bend, it's really wide enough for 1 person. And you know, if you're not right up there going into this thing, it can really cause some separation.
Also, the terrain here, this is the first time that you've hit any sort of really questionable footing in terms of grassy terrain. They've been running on sand and dirt the whole time, and you come in here, and this is a harder pack with some really weird soft spots thrown in, grass that grows in tufts, so there's like up and down, awkward landings for your feet and ankles.
It looks easier than it really is. These guys are outstanding athletes, and they make it look at Atkins. They make it look so much easier than it really is, but the footing out there is actually very, very unstable.
Ryan Kent has made a big move into 3rd position, passing Ryan Woods, and we expected this, that a lot of obstacles in the first part of this race would keep Woods from being able to run away from it like he's done in some of these other courses. What we've seen, Woods wants a course like San Jose where he hits 2 huge climbs early and breaks the field. Here he's going to actually have to show his consistency on the obstacles for the first 30 minutes of this race.
He has to stay close. Like you said before, he has to maintain that contact through this first part of the race. Like Stevie Hammond said, it's very obstacle dense. It's going to keep those fast runners from breaking away. As long as he can maintain contact and stay close, he's got a shot, and that's why I picked him to win. But Ryan Atkins, again, as predicted, is staying up there. But look at Ryan Kempson. If you do not recognize him, he's a very successful, disease-free man who is running ramp shot through this course right now and not backing down from a soul.
So I mentioned before, I said I think he's the smoothest runner in the field when you look at his technique. It's incredible that he has this natural ability. He was never a runner before the last few years when he started running Spartan Race. It's the first time he started actually training to run races. He's still learning. He suffered from a number of hip injuries where that really kept him out of training for a few years, and now he's got all that behind him. He spends an hour plus a day on just hip and lower back mobility, and you see it paying dividends now.
An hour. That's incredible.
It's incredible how much work he puts into
it. It's a lot of time just for hip and back mobility. You know what I think about this part of the course now? I think that Woods has made a little bit of an error. I think Woods definitely needed to be in the top 3 at this point because we've got quite a long section of fairly flat running coming up, which would suit him.
Harder to pass in here with all these branches and brambles.
Yeah, and he's not there right now. So you know, my question to both you guys actually is you know, in the beginning, is it possible over this super distance to go too hard in the beginning and destroy the race, or is it so short? I mean, is it short enough that someone can make a decent enough comeback?
In my opinion, if you have a race that's only going to be a hair over an hour, you can't blow up in the first 10 minutes and then recharge enough to run down a field of athletes.
It's not so short that you can kind of be a little reckless.
Look how deep this water is that they're going through right now. This is a bog. This is the kind of stuff that Ryan Woods is not going to be able to gain time on people on it. In fact, it might be the sort of thing that takes a runner's legs. Heavy, wet feet now for the next mile after this.
We'll have to go to Woods later. We'll have to talk to Woodsy later.
About his strategy?
Well, yeah. Think about it. I mean, he probably thinks he will crush this section.
Look, this is only a 50-foot gap between 1st and 5th position right now. This is any man's race, and what we have is nobody is safe on that podium right now. And if we know anything, it's that Kempson out in front does not mean a Kempson win.
Look at these shots here in Jacksonville. Isn't this awesome? Look at this beautiful course. It is just like, it's challenging, it's fast, it's beautiful. I love this part of the course.
Well, you know, just going back to one thing before we move on from there as well is, you know, we talk about, hey, you know, is that part of his plan? Is this not?
Woods,
you know what? I tell you what, this is still a sport. And you come into any race like this, it's kind of like that old adage. You know, like everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Like you could have a strategy coming in, and all of a sudden, people running past you, people being also incredible and having their own plans as well, completely blows up your spot, and then you got to adjust. So right now it's up to adjust. None of us called Ryan Kempson to be leading this race right now, but he is. That wasn't according to anybody's plans. So, and if we wanted to write down on paper exactly who's going to win these races in place, we could just call it a day and go home. But that's a great thing about the sport. Anything could happen.
Now, I'm surprised less by Ryan Kempson being up in the mix and more so by Ryan Atkins being able to put so much pressure on the field himself and looking so comfortable so early on. That's Ryan Kent.
It's tight between Kent and Atkins. It's really tight.
It's going to continue to be tight. And what's amazing is Kent had a bad race a couple weeks ago, and everyone said, he's not going to have it this year. And yet he just consistently remains up there in the mix as dark horse Robert Killian.
And there's Woods in fifth place right now.
And that is Kirk DeWitt, I believe, in sixth position right now.
I got to make a point. Somebody who writes an athlete off of that ability based on one race early in the season is foolish. You don't write anybody off of that talent with one race. Sorry.
Absolutely not. As we have not
the
to mention
Midwestern
talent,
boys, Bracken
Crocker. You know, I mean, so again, a legend of the sport who came down. And followed by John Yatsko, who we talked about, the very smart, very eccentric Columbia grad student who used to be a Spartan Force 4 or 5 years ago, and he's back again.
And this is the sandbag carry that we've got going on right now. They just ran through a deep bog, and now, if you're wondering what all that white stuff on the ground is, those are plates from discs from skeet shooting.
This is the Bucket Brigade.
The Bucket Brigade right now. Excuse me, Bucket. Deep piles of
skeet
discs,
clay,
discs. Yeah. It's actually kind of a strange terrain to run on.
It's actually what stops you from sinking into the ground here. There's Johnny Luma, I think, on
and I
camera
saw
right there
as well.
He's looking fairly strong. This is great. You know, his focus this season is really the US National Series. In the past, he's been a Mountain Series runner. He's pumped up to put it to the best of them this year at the National Series, and indeed at Tahoe at the World Championship.
This is a deep field we've got going on here because we have all these guys running around Luna Lima and Yatsko.
Oh, it's awesome.
And you're talking about guys who look incredibly strong 16 minutes into a race. I mean, when's the last time you saw 20 men running at this high a level at the front end of a race?
Everyone's zone 5 and through those,
those
they
kickers. Better be at their limits. So Ryan Kempson right now still in first, but a huge gap has closed with Ryan Atkins and Ryan Kent all behind him. So the three Ryans, Ryan, and then the Ryan we all expected to be out in front, Ryan Woods, not in the top three right now.
So here's a point I wanted to bring.
But he's close.
He's close. Here's a point I wanted to bring up before, like when we're talking about Woods and stuff. For everybody watching, it's not like these guys are kind of showing up and then just kind of stand at the start line and then I'll figure it out. Like, it's getting to the point now in this sport, you know, that as soon as the course map is released, they're studying it. They're getting on Google Earth and zooming in and looking at the terrain and using satellite technology and using every bit of technology they can to get an edge up on the course. This is becoming a very technical, very scientific sport. So, you know, he's prepared is my point.
He is prepared, but if I was one of these racers that said, I know the back end of this course has 4 miles of a lot of running, flat running, and I know his speed, I'm trying to hit him in the mouth early on in the race. I want to put the pressure on Ryan Woods early where there's obstacles and make him redline going through them so he might be prone for a mistake.
Especially if you're a better a person on obstacles, such as an Atkins, such as a Kempson. As good as Ryan Woods has been recently at getting better at obstacles, it's still probably the most suspect part of his game.
Yes, and if you want him to make a mistake, you've got to pressure him. He's not going to make any mistakes if he's got a 4-minute lead.
No, we saw that in San Jose. There's no way.
Put him in distress. Don't let him have the wings under his feet of being in first. That running comfortable is not where you want him. You want him afraid the entire time. As you see Bracken only about 30 seconds behind the leaders right now.
And picking up the bucket just before that, we saw Lefty Campisi, who is our first Spartan Pro Team athlete from the country of Georgia.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so brilliant to see here at the Media Day yesterday on Friday, to see all the different country flags on the jerseys. Of course, you know, 200-plus athletes on the pro roster.
It felt kind of like World Championships yesterday in that regard.
Yeah. It's World Championships every day around here.
So right now, out in front, I believe we still have Ryan Kempson, Ryan Atkins, Ryan Kent. That order may have shuffled, but a lot of Ryans in the mix. Robert Killian also in the mix here as we look into this first. I would say they're closing in on 2 miles into this race. And they've already had 2 heavy carries. Now, that it does bode well for Ryan Woods. The heavy carries are out of the way.
Let's also remember the biggest problem for Woods is this. Atkins is just such a machine, right? You talk about, okay, or maybe I'll catch him on the flat later.
He's a closer. Atkins is a closer.
Atkins can run, he can lift, he can crawl, he can climb, he can do everything, and he can do it for 24 hours non-stop. He showed it in Iceland.
It's true. It's going to take a display of speed now to take this thing back. Now, there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of open ground. We ran this yesterday. We know that there's a couple miles of essentially no obstacles where it's really going to become about threshold.
I've got to say one point, and because you guys won't say it because you live it, but for everybody watching, people like Dave Magida, people like Kevin, and these athletes we're watching, this sport requires such a high level of physical and mental ability. Let's get to the mental in a minute, but let's talk about the physical ability of Spartan athletes. Honestly, that's why this sport is exploding. It is the sport. It is the #1 sport that produces, I would say, the most incredible athletes on the planet.
There will be a stretch of time during this race when they emerge from the woods again, where these athletes are going to be running 5:20 miles on bad terrain when already pre-fatigued for an extended period of time.
Let's be clear about that point you just made, 5:20, right? Go down the track, right?
It's not like running it on the track.
Right? Go down the track and run the pace that these guys are running
for
over.
one lap.
It's like running sub-5 on the track consistently.
Yeah.
Or the road.
Yeah.
This terrain is not friendly for returning energy and propelling you forward.
Then you add in the obstacles.
And then you add in, and not just the obstacle of completion, the fatigue that is induced on the body by the obstacle itself
As
can
we
be
see
dramatic.
an athlete just take a tumble with the bucket and another athlete take a tumble with the bucket because that is the pressure it's putting on them. That pre-fatigue that we just talked about.
You know what it is too? On this section, there are these little tree stumps that stick up.
They are. They're painted orange, some of them.
Some of them are, but yeah, some of them are. You've got a nice black toenail from yesterday, Makita.
Yes, I stubbed the toe on one.
Yeah, I bit the dust as well, and I bit the mud.
And there's Lefty coming out of the bucket, just putting his bucket down and running out.
These little nubs of wood that are sticking up, I believe it's caused by beavers.
Really?
I think it was, to me, it looked like a beaver had gnawed them down to about 3 inches off the ground, maybe 4 inches off the ground.
Don't quote us on this. We're not wildlife experts by any means.
I mean, I don't know what other animals do that.
I'm not putting my name to that.
That were dinosaurs, Dave. That were dinosaurs.
Could have been petrified rock. So as you see, going through there, you have to pick your spots. It's also wet ground, like soft earth interspersed with firm spots. So like you could step and go shin deep into like a little mud bog out of nowhere.
Check it out.
It's not just the sand.
Check it out.
Women's field.
Women's field.
Women's field's here. Look how amazing Ryan Kempson looks, but on his heels.
I'll give it to you, Dave. You make a really good point, right? He has just got such a fluid running style. Look at the perfect cadence. Just everything is just in line.
He's an incredibly well-rounded athlete. Like David said,
he runs like a gazelle.
Basketball player. He was a defensive back and wide receiver in football. He could do it all.
He's smooth through everything.
And it's that well-rounded athlete that you were just talking about, that what makes Spartan so incredible.
And there we have Ryan Kent now about 11 seconds behind Ryan Kempson as we make this big shift now. Atkins has slipped to third, and it was when the running opened up after the carries. We knew he would be strong near the front for the carries, but this is an interesting development to see him drop that kind of time to these two athletes on the opening run.
We'll get another chance to see it when the top females come through, or maybe some of the other guys. But that technique over the inverted wall for everybody watching, when you get your arm over the top, and get your chest on, get slap that thing, and just get your legs and your knees and flip over the top. It's a really quick way to achieve that obstacle.
Kempson is running fearless. Ryan Kent, we always know, like the way he is, he runs with a lot of like bravado. But this is something special that Kempson's throwing down in the first start of the season right here. And we did say, man, he'll be a factor, but I think nobody expected this.
I want to point out something too. That's Steve Hammond, who we introduced, and you've been listening to Steve. He was holding the camera and running along with Kempson. This sport has created this kind of really special camera operator that's extremely fit. You got to hold a shot. I mean, let's not make any error.
I've done it. It's hard. It's very hard. So hard. I mean, because not only are you trying to run with the athlete, but what Steve Hammond is trying trying to do there. He's trying to keep the athlete in a viewfinder on a cell phone as he is running full speed through the same kind of terrain.
This is deep, thick mud that he just hit right there. The kind of stuff that can suck your shoe right off your feet. And he's out of it. Now the spear throw. This is big.
This is it.
If he hits this spear, he's in a good position. But if he misses this, his race is toast.
This is exactly halfway through the race as far as the obstacles are concerned. Now, the difference with this obstacle now, it is now these foamy sponges. We don't have the hay bales anymore. Every single target is uniform. They had to slightly modify the spear by adding a knob to the top so it doesn't bury too deep. But this is different than the athletes have seen yet. And he nails it. First big test.
All right, so Kent's coming through.
This
Atkins
is
is there as
18
well.
seconds so far.
See,
and here comes the straggler. In the words of Tony Perkis, he needs to fend for himself right now. Ryan Woods, out of all the Ryans, is the straggler of the group. As Ryan Atkins hit as well, and he's off and running.
This is a great lesson for everybody. Just you can see how these pros just take their time. Just lower the heart rate, take your time, hit the target. 30 burpees is not what you want.
All right,
Bang,
we got some
bang.
double
and
hits.
then that was Atkins.
We've got the
Now
first four
Woods.
men, all four Ryans now up in the front, and all good hits right now.
Approaching the helix.
It's got to the point. Now, here's the new obstacle for those of you who hadn't seen it. Well, Dave, you can talk through your experience, but you know the spear throw has got to the point where you just can't afford to miss it if you want to win. It's a must do.
This is an obstacle a lot of these athletes are just encountering for the first time, the helix. And what's interesting about it is there are a lot of places that your feet and hands cannot go in terms of the framing, but there's also, and there's Bracken Crocker right there with Robert Killian, there's also the issue of plexiglass. It's slippery on the feet. There's not a lot of great grip holds where you encounter plexiglass areas, and that does impact your confidence as you move your way through this.
All the top men have hit the spear. Killian hit his. I believe that was Kirk DeWitt who hit his as well.
This is
as
Tyler
well as Bracken
Veerman.
Crocken.
This is Tyler Veerman right now lined up.
Veerman did extremely
and
well. Veerman did extremely well at the combine.
He did very well at the combine, and actually in the race that same weekend, he took second place each day. I raced with him and Mark Batros on the first day. He was about 20 seconds in front of me. He's a great runner. And for those of you, as you're watching the helix right now, just note the women's race is about to begin. So for those of you waiting to see Rebecca Hammond and Nell Rojas and Faye
I'm pumped.
and Nicole Miracle all take their shot at Lindsay Webster, this is where it's going to happen.
If you notice on that helix obstacle, just for the viewer watching, they're not allowed to touch the very top. Right. They have to keep their hands on the sides. They have to navigate across with their feet touching the ground, and then obviously hit the bell.
And now the women lined up right now. Again, an incredibly deep field for the women. We have Rhea Coble in the mix. We haven't even mentioned her name. Alyssa Hawley, who has come out typically in the top 3 of each race to start a season, especially on the flatter courses. And Rose Wetzel, Leanne Wastany. Rebecca Hamrick needs to be mentioned. She won the honor series for the women.
I'm going to do my own athletes to watch.
Rachel Hamrick.
Rachel Hamrick, excuse me.
Rachel, yeah. I'm going to add my own athletes to watch to this and say Rhea Coble, because she is just in a fantastic frame of mind at the moment. Looking at her social media posts, right, she's just talking about how, what an honor it is just to be racing again, how alive she feels. Like very, very positive words. And when I feel that when someone's in that mindset, they're going to perform well.
Yeah, Rhea Coble is definitely a huge competitor in terms of the quality that she's going to bring to this particular field this year. We saw her struggle with injuries last year. It really threw her off.
Still smiles all the way through it, which is unbelievable.
She's the happiest person in the world. Also eats more food than anyone I've ever met in my life. Is that right? Yeah, she'll clean 3 or 4 plates at dinner.
She's got a rocking six-pack then. I don't know what's going on.
She's jacked. But, I mean, you're talking about an athlete who runs like 100 miles a week.
Yeah.
Consistently.
Yeah.
In the mountains.
Yeah. Some would say that's what led to her injuries last year. She came out and, I mean, walloped everybody in San Jose.
We thought she was going to be unbeatable.
But here's it.
Then she hit a cold, kind of sloppy day in Seattle, all right? Very similar, not that it's cold, but it's going to be kind of sloppy out here today,
too. Cold impacts her dramatically.
Granted, as good of a rock climber and gymnast as she was in her past, a course like this is still something that has given her problems traditionally from what we have seen.
She takes her advantage on hills and mountains and things like that. If what happens normally happens today, Nicole Miracle is about to take this field out way too fast, which will be very exciting.
She always does.
She loves to do it, and you know what? She takes it out at a level that's right for her, but she likes to put the field into stress early.
From the intel I've gotten, we cannot sleep on Faye Stenning in this race because she's right now running 10-minute 2 miles in her training. The only aspect of this I have with Faye is she seems to struggle on obstacles when she sees them for the first time.
Here we go. Women's race is off and going.
Oh, look at the speed out the front. Nicole.
Yeah.
Nicole Miracle.
That is the easiest prediction in the world.
She's got all this nervous energy to burn off, and I always tell my athletes, you save that nervous energy.
She's not saving anything.
There's no need to burn it off now, but she has decided that she wants to make this a 5-woman race out of the gates. Like, explode the field and then let the chips fall where they may.
Look, well, here come the chips because they're about to hit these kickers, and this is where the heart rate will start to pump.
So I can see Hammond sitting there in third. I see Rhea Coble. Wow.
Would you roll over that, or would you kind of just ascend it the way they are?
I would just hop over the top, but I think it depends on how tall you are, what's your vertical. Lindsay Webster is sitting all the way back in 7th position right now.
After
Her little
100
ponytail
meters.
bouncing back and forth.
And
She
in the
doesn't
blue
care.
shorts running towards the left, that is Rose Wetzel.
Yes, and up near the
There's
front,
Faye
you're
at the
going to
front.
see some. There's Nell Rojas, I believe, sitting in third.
Faye
Faye Stenning is sitting in fourth.
You'll see this year too, everybody who's been watching the elite group over the years, that the elites are wearing the red headband this year just to delineate things. It helps with officiating. It just creates a different sort of look as well. It's a very coveted thing to wear the red headband. Age groupers as well wearing that this year. It's very cool.
So the field is spread already, but some of our big competitors are actually back in that second group. I believe that's Rebecca Hammond sitting in 9th or 10th position overall right now.
That is Rebecca.
And she is very comfortable. And I think over the course of this next mile, you'll see her just pick off one person at a time.
The problem with this section, well, at least problem, you know, depending on how you define the word, but the challenge of this section is that it's flat, right? But and it visually looks like you can go quite hard, and then as I said earlier, it's tricky because then you start to get to the motorbike jumps, the dirt bike jumps.
And there is Nell Rojas with her friend and training partner, Nicole Miracle, who just went over that first hump and is sharing the lead with her early in this race.
So Nell Rojas and Nicole together, working together maybe to break the field as a team and closing.
Another very fluid running style,
Yes.
Nicole Miracle. And watching her at the Sparta Trifecta World Championship, she just displayed it on some of the most sort of uneven terrain through the river at Sparta. If you guys were watching it, she's just very smooth.
I believe that's Natalie Miano who's trying to stay up there with the leaders as well. She's
looking fit, huh?
She's been very quick, and she's made big leaps since we last saw her in Laughlin, Nevada, where she won both days of the women's race. But right now, sitting up in first position, that's Nell Rojas, Nicole Miracle in second, and I'm still trying to identify.
Nell Rojas is actually in third right now. In first, quite possibly, that might be Tia Reagan.
Oh, it's we're looking at a three-headed monster, I would call it, up in the front, really trying to separate the field. But the two women that I think each one of these people has in the back of their mind are still sitting behind them.
Think about what we just called, when we're talking about the depth of this field. Three-headed monster and Lindsay Webster and Faye Stenning or Alyssa Hawley and Rhea Coble aren't even in that group. That is Tia Reagan.
Great to see.
Now, with Tia Reagan up in first, I know that these athletes, that she is confident in her running ability, but possibly a miscalculation in your first National Series race going out this hard.
A little bit too hard, and look at those two fantastic athletes, those two women in second and third. They're both pros. You see they're wearing the pro kit, all the awesome craft gear there, yeah, you don't want to sort of set the wrong precedent here. I would say she's gonna pay for this.
Well, I'll tell you what.
To come.
A lot of people were saying similar things about Rebecca Hammond at West Virginia last year. Like, what is this woman doing? And there she was, mile after mile with the lead crew. So until she shows us she can't stay with them, go get them.
That's a fair point. I mean, this is how the sport works.
We just don't know.
We have expectations until someone breaks them.
Yeah. And there is Faye Stenning there in the blue top, followed by Rebecca Hammond, the black top and black shorts, and right in front with the camera on right now, that is Natalie Miano, like you called before.
Yeah, so I was surprised to see her there. We knew she'd take a jump this year. She's been getting coached by her husband, Mark Batris, and he's put a really serious training plan together for her.
Another power couple in this sport.
It is. They're trying to emerge, and you could see it happen. So
The extraordinary thing about Natalie Miano right there, she started off as a basketball player, not just a basketball player. She started off as a trick basketball player. She is like locally famous in Northern California.
You mean with trampolines and all that sort of stuff?
In Southern California. She's an incredible ball handler.
Right.
They would do trick shots and all kinds of dribbling drills and spinning it on their finger and crazy stuff. They would sell out like open quads in their area, and people would come pay to watch them. She's a fabulous overall athlete.
So right now, up in the front,
Tia Reagan.
Tia Reagan killing the climbs. I mean, she looks so smooth and comfortable, and I don't doubt her athleticism, but this is a bold move to take a field out this hard, especially with the caliber of runners. I mean, Nell Rojas, 2:31 marathoner we're talking about. Nicole Miracle, we know what she can do on a track. And look,
see the energy sapping nature. Yeah, see the energy sapping nature.
Already.
Rebecca,
I talk about this. That is the one big hill. There's the one steep hill on this course.
That's the thing.
If you're going to have it, you don't necessarily need to run up it fast. It's diminishing returns sometimes, and you need to just absorb and save energy when you can.
She's being smart.
If you're watching these ladies on the monkey bars now, they're doing a fantastic job of maintaining their momentum as they go across. The last thing you want to do on a monkey bars is stop your momentum and try to pull up and reach. You need to maintain that momentum as you go across if you want to complete this adequately.
I look at Nell Rojas and I see someone who's very new to obstacles, and she's really, this back and forth swinging is unnecessary in a monkey bars. You see how Faye continues to move forward.
It's a forward motion you want, right, Dave?
As opposed to a forward, backward, forward motion. You want that on other obstacles, perhaps, but this is the one where we want to see continuous motion, as Kevin mentioned. And Nell got through that because the monkey bars are one of the easier obstacles, but when we get to things like beater later, it could be a problem for her if she's not out in front.
Beater, twister.
Twister's another one where athletes are fine to do it in practice, but when you come to it redlined, it's a whole different experience, especially for those who are more of a novice to this particular sport.
Not to mention, after that, you use that excessive energy, and then you come into the Hercules hoist, and then you have to worry about what is my form like on this. We talked about her being a 2:31 marathoner, but this takes a tremendous amount of grip out of you early and a tremendous amount of upper body strength if you're not using your legs.
It's my favorite obstacle.
It's my favorite obstacle. I just think it requires such a different skill set of strength and power and grit. Rebecca Hammond made a big move, by the way. As you can see, the lead has changed once again, but Hammond moved all the way back up into 4th position. Miano got dropped. Hammond passed Faye Stenning going into the Herc hoist and then lost that position again. Faye blew right by her on the hoist. You see the experience of the veteran athletes coming through in terms of obstacle proficiency and gaining valuable seconds.
Miracle is moving.
Miracle made a huge move as well at the Herc hoist. All of our veteran athletes, the ones that are 2-3 years in, you can see that they're taking 10-15 seconds on some of these obstacles. It is a big game changer, even if they're not necessarily the fastest pure runners in the field.
I was watching Ashley Heller yesterday studying the course map and studying the obstacles as they go through. And she's relatively newer to the game. Ladies like Nicole Miracle, like a Faye Stenning, like an Alyssa Hawley, they know exactly what they're doing, how to manage that energy, not only earlier in the course, but for later as well.
And for a lot of people, they come upon an obstacle like that, and they have to take 2 deep breaths before they start. There's the hesitation. There's you are trying not to make a mistake. These athletes who've been doing this for years, they can come in with the confidence that they're not going to make a mistake and just focus on just getting through it smooth and efficiently.
And we just saw Faye, Rebecca, Natalie Miano crawling up that really steep berm that was just deep mud, and they're getting their hands in it. That's another part of this course that we're going to have to watch is as they go into these boggy, muddy areas, then they're going to have to hit more of these grip-intensive obstacles. What is it going to be the condition of their hands when they get to something like a beater and then really have to use that technique with horrible hands?
Still in the mud right now as we go through the barbed wire crawl. The question was asked, how rocky is this terrain? I think it's fairly smooth.
It's darn tough, Dave. It's darn tough.
I think it's fairly smooth as we get through this. But again, you're seeing crawling technique, not a lot of rolling today from the men or the women's field, which is surprising.
That would signify a pretty high barbed wire then, because if they're able to get through like this, they're managing their energy a little.
It would also signify a softer terrain, which is, I think, one of the big things. A lot of athletes don't want to crawl because they're not trying to smash their knees up and inflict pain on themselves that early, and which can limit their running abilities. If you can crawl this, it's soft dirt.
Yeah. Soft and you got enough clearance. You know, the way the barbed wire is strung does change. I mean, within, you know, a small margin. But today the crawl is an effective way to get through. Now there's a little bit of rolling going on.
It's also energy efficient. Just a baby crawl is more energy efficient than, say, an army crawl. And a roll is going to be energy efficient in some ways, but an alternation of the two is going to be your best technique.
Crawl, roll.
Crawl, roll.
Well, like you said, you have to mix that up if you're going to roll, because you are going to get dizzy if you do it too much.
How you train for that? How do you train for the barbed wire crawl?
I used to make clients do a bunch of burpees and then actually roll, and to the point that they said, I hate this and I hate you.
In our Spartan XGX training, we use animal movements such as the ape, such as the bear, to train those muscles, the abdominals, the legs, the arms, to get ready for
crab walking and stuff like that as well, or just getting the core active.
If the athletes go online, there's so many things and so many valuable assets on the website that could show you.
Yep. Spartan.com.
Okay, right now you have a cluster of athletes, including Faye Stenning now coming over the top with Natalie Miano and a few others.
Rose Wetzel coming down that wall.
It is Rose Wetzel. So right now, this is a huge part of the race where we're very obstacle heavy for a couple more moments. They're about to get to the heavy carries. And then this field is going to spread out even more. But right now, I'd still say a very solid cluster. I've been pleased with how Rose Wetzel's performed so far.
She's hanging in there. She's close. And again, this is going to be a year and a half after she's had her baby. She's starting to continue to get stronger. And again, this could be the start of her upward climb back up to the top of the OCR game.
We mentioned that Faye Stenning has been dropping 2-mile intervals in her workouts at 10 flat pace. And she's sitting in 5th position right now. These women can move, all of them.
As we get a good look at Alyssa Hawley right there with the sandbag on her back, this is one of her strongest obstacles, and you can see how fast she's moving in.
She used to be the best strength and obstacle proficient female in the field, but over the last few years, she's sacrificed all of that advantage to focus on improving her running, to give herself a fighting chance as it pertained to most courses.
Tough year last year, too, with the injuries.
Yes, tough year with the injuries. And so she now is fully dedicated to running, and she's sacrificing a lot of her strength gains by not lifting the way she used to.
And if you're noticing the ferocity of some of these ladies in this sandbag carry, they're fighting tooth and nail to pass each other in these small lanes as they're going through that helmet.
A little bit of jostling going on, even, right?
I don't think it's as small as we're making it out to be. It's snug is the way I would call it. And it's an opportunity to get cozy with somebody that you like. Give them a little bump, maybe.
Yeah, with the old sandbag.
Yeah, give me the old sandbag bump. Now, depending on the bag that you grab, they may be weighted a little bit more to the left, to the right, or to the center. So carrying technique is going to vary, but ideally you want to strap that thing across.
Let's clarify that, David, because when you say weighted differently, just for everybody watching, we're talking about that when you pick that bag up, you can move the contents of the bag around depending on how you like to carry it.
It depends how long it was wet and then baked in the sun afterwards, because
also makes a difference.
Sometimes it all sits at one end or the other, and you don't have the time to adjust it, and that will determine whether you're doing a single shoulder carry or whether you can drape it around your neck and use both.
I don't know if you're feeling this little cold breeze picking up here in Jacksonville right now. It's actually going to be good for the athletes.
Perfect running conditions.
Perfect running conditions. Take away the little bit of the humidity, right? This is the time where you want to set those, those fastest times. It's a good time of day. A little cool breeze coming in. It's actually perfect.
And talking to all the athletes leading up into this was the main concern. How were they going to be able to handle the humidity? The last 2 days down here, it was very hot and humid. It had a lot of the athletes worried.
Right
they were
now,
staying indoors. Right now, this is perfect.
Perfect. You see the flags fluttering there. It just gives you an indication of how much breeze there is.
It looks to me like Rachel Hamrick has moved all the way up into 3rd position, and the name that we have not talked about yet at all today is, of course, the legend Lindsay Webster.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're just saving the best. We're just saving the best. I mean,
she started in Seattle slow last year, if you recall that race.
Don't speak too soon, because we have Rebecca Hama with Lindsay Webster right on her
butt.
There
she is. So the two of them have now moved up into 3rd and 4th position, I believe, unless we miss someone. And this race is going to get interesting because you're looking at the top 2 women in the world.
So let's clarify again for everybody watching. When we say unless or maybe, that the issue is the course is spread out, right? So things are changing all the time. Faye standing there on camera. Things are moving and changing all the time. And as they go through woods and they go through other obstacles, there are very, very quick changes. We're going to keep trying to give you the most accurate sort of commentary.
And they're being followed also by Ashley Heller right there in the back too. So she, again, another athlete we talked about is starting to round out that top 10. Alyssa Hawley back in about 6th or 7th.
Still in the mix. I mean, the incredible thing about Alyssa is the evolution of the athlete that she is, the style.
And there is Rose Wetzel in the top 10.
We'd love to see Rose Wetzel in the top 10, but what I really want to see is Rose Wetzel in the top 5 because I think she's going to have the speed this year to get back into the mix where she used to be and be a factor for podium finishes in this series.
When I asked her leading up to this race what was her goal, and her goal was to be back in the top 10 of the U.S. Championship Series, and once she got back in that top 10, to work her way up as the season went. She is setting herself up to complete that goal right now as we watch it.
And so as you can see, that beautiful Spartan trail.
It's getting a little, it's also getting a little more foggy, although it can be just, as the sun's coming up.
It's moisture in the air.
Moisture in the air. The sun's coming up. The breeze is picking up.
If that turns into moisture on the bars of, say, a twister or
it definitely is.
A beater.
It definitely has turned into it.
It is going to be.
And that is, dew seems to be the most slippery of waters. I don't know what it is, but in the morning, that morning dew tends to be the most difficult thing to grip.
As opposed to rain, you're saying?
I don't know if they differ in any way. I just know that in the morning, maybe it's the amount of moisture, just a little bit of slick, almost like just when it rains in the beginning of the rain, the road's really slick, and then it becomes waterlogged, and then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more frictiony.
The temperature too, the fact that the metal's cold.
Yes.
You add the moisture, you add cold metal, and then you add the fact that your hands are fatigued.
It's also the texture of the sand and the grit and the dirt and the consistency of the mud that is going to be on your hands. Is it going to be something that is a little more tacky and sticky that actually helps you grip it? Or is it going to be something that completely makes you slide off?
7-second gap right now. Nicole Miracle with the lead right now, and she looks incredibly comfortable. When you look at her, I see no fatigue on her in any way.
If there's fatigue, it's not showing. Put it that way. And she's very good at hiding it.
And
Tia Reagan
looking really strong.
She's staying with her. She's able to stay with her through the sandbag. Now we're going to see her strength a little bit. It's going to be put to the test as they approach the bucket.
I just want to point out now we are 25 seconds since Nicole finished that rope climb. And where is the next female? This now is turning into a 2-woman race, provided no mistakes are made. And if you're Nicole, you've got to feel very good. As
Lindsay
here
Webster
now, 37 seconds to Lindsay Webster, and where's Rebecca Hammond? There she is. You've got to feel good as Nicole Miracle. Putting this kind of gap on the field this early, feeling strong and not looking visibly fatigued, and knowing that the person closest to you is fairly new to these obstacles.
Let's remember that's rope climb's obstacle number 11 of 31. So,
And there's Faye coming in,
60
and this
is
right behind her, Evelyn Ruiz, who we saw in Big Bear. Back then, nobody knew who she was, and she put down a tremendous race in the first half, and she's hanging with these other ladies.
Yeah, we've got, and that's Rose again.
There's Rose hanging in there, followed by our first sighting of Ray of Coble, and followed quickly by Alyssa Hawley.
It's the old guard. Hard to believe that this is the old guard now.
You know what's interesting about this as well, what we're seeing here? See a fellow there who's, at the back of the pack trying to get up that rope. It just shows you how difficult it is. Like, you can forget, when you watch these top athletes at home, you can forget how actually tough and proficient.
They make it look
this
easy.
Is, right? Yeah, you can see there was one guy there, he was struggling. This is not easy.
I talk about this all the time. It's like you watch LeBron James play basketball, and he makes it look so easy that you forget how great he is. It's the same exact thing right now. And you see like a Rose Wetzel come in, and she's, maybe the number 7 female right now, and yet she makes it look so simple that you're like, oh, they're all, you try and put this pecking order to them. They're all so talented.
The fun thing, call it fun, that I like to do is get your watch out, or get a stopwatch when you're at home. Go to a track, go to somewhere flat where you can run, and just run the pace that these men and women are running right now over uneven terrain.
Yeah, see how long you can last.
If you can.
See how long you can last,
Try
guys.
and run 8 miles.
As we're watching all those ladies run through, we're seeing a Melissa, a Rose, a Rhea coming in the back half of the top 10 now. It just speaks to, again, of how deep this field is that we have now in Spartan. And then it's just, some people put way too much of emphasis, like, who's going to be the winner of the race? It is an accomplishment right now just to be in that top 10.
Yeah.
And they are all fighting for it tooth and nail.
Great points. There's a lot for the sport.
We have females finishing the bucket carry right now. This is a huge gap forming now. I mean, if we can get the first few women out of the bucket carry and into the open running, this is good. If you're running and they're carrying, it stretches that gap dramatically.
We just saw Alex Walker pick up her bucket and head down the trail.
Alex Walker,
get your watch ready.
Texan. Oh, I'm ready. Here we got the first one, Nicole Miracle.
There's Ashley Heller running into the
running
to pick up the
done
bucket.
with it. Here's number 2 female.
Timmy Brand finishing as Ashley Heller is picking up, and I believe that looks like Casey Monroe coming in behind her.
You got Hammond.
Look at this.
The spread has been pretty strong so far. So the women's buckets, as you can see, are the red ones. Men are black, for those at home who don't know. They used to be uncovered buckets. You'd have to fill your own bucket from a pile of rocks. We had issues with judging and scoring that. That's why they ended up capping it.
It's all about consistency, right? So, you know, you want to create a consistent officiating experience. This is a young sport. A good decision was made that, you know, we looked at it and we said, look, you put a cap on that thing, it keeps the weight even. There's no sort of, you know, contention around is it full to the line or not. Make no mistake, it doesn't make it any easier at all.
That being said, I used to love filling the bucket because there was like a
You'd
science
fill extra,
to it.
wouldn't you? You'd put extra in it.
Just cap it.
15 seconds, by the way, the gap that Lindsay Webster just put on Rebecca Hammond. 15 seconds in the last couple minutes.
There's Callie Schweikert, one of our new pro team members who just picked up her bucket.
She's awesome.
She was an absolute beast college soccer goalie. So think about it. Coming from being a soccer goalie where you're standing in just a smaller box of one big box, and now you're an endurance athlete running miles.
There's a couple of soccer
And
players
there's
that probably
Timmy Brand.
take you to task on that. But
I mean, it's a very different energy system used by a goalkeeper.
Exactly.
Fast and twitchy.
That's absolutely true.
Rather than the players like running, playing midi, and running all over the field the whole game.
Again, in all black right there with the black headband, that was Timmy Brand just running into, and she is another one of our pro team athletes. And one of the cool things about her, she's just about to finish business school, and she works as a jacuzzi technician. Actually, that's Evelyn Louise, works as a jacuzzi technician.
There's
Timmy
Rhea
Brand
Coble.
is finishing her business degree.
What is a jacuzzi
She had
technician?
a rough go of this bucket carry because Rhea
Sounds
just
like a great
lost
job.
about 45 seconds to Alyssa Hawley and Rose Wetzel in this bucket carry.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's not the longest of bucket carries, so if you take that into account, the fact that it is fairly short, to make up that amount of time just gives you an idea of how fast the
terrain is uneven. There's a little bit of mud. It's kind of weird, but you're right. It's that some of them are running with the bucket and others are walking, and that gap can stretch dramatically in there. It's an opportunity to really take the legs of someone in your opposition. You have to be concerned with, is it about time or is it about inducing damage? Like, what am I trying to do?
Yeah, the terrain really, and where it is in the race, really dominates how fast you can go with the bucket. And in a race like today, you better be running with that bucket if you want to keep up with everyone. You cannot use it as a chance to kind of recover, which some people do.
So as we move forward in this race, you've seen the women come through the bucket carry, and you will see them hit things like spear throw and helix coming up shortly. The men's field is deep in the black swamps out in the back in the bog, and that's where things are going to be shaken up. Ryan Kempson was out with that lead, but it's not secure with Atkins and Kent and Woods all on his heels.
It is so treacherous back there. It's like WrestleMania. Anybody could go in there and get thrown over the ropes and then never come out again.
Yeah. Look, you know, as we said earlier on, when you hit the swampy sections of the course, any running rhythm is totally disrupted. It's going to be difficult for anybody who's particularly strong at running, like Ryan Woods. You know, just everything about rhythm is where a good runner, you know, makes up time. Breaking the rhythm, disastrous.
The women are approaching obstacle 14, which is the inverted wall. Then they have spearman and helix, as we mentioned before.
This is good.
Here from Jacksonville, the first stop in the U.S. National Series, and the men's race is about to heat up.
And we talk about some of our new athletes here that are leading the pack right now, that are new to this game, approaching the spear. They've never had the pressure on them ever like they do today, right now, to hit a spear.
This is still competitive right now. This is Nicole Miracle sitting in first position with Tia Reagan chasing. And we have a quick Atlas carry. Atlas Stone is the 13th obstacle. So, yeah, so inverted wall, spearman, and helix coming next. And we're going to get a good sighting of the men coming up after that.
If you're not familiar with Nicole Miracle's background, she was a Division I runner at Rice University. very, very, very skinny, has put on a tremendous amount of strength over the years, and she's a world-class rock climber. She's outstanding. So now coming to some of these strength-based obstacles, she's gotten so much better, and there is Tia Reagan hanging with her, doing quality burpees and still looking strong as she's doing them. She's not taking her time. She's moving.
Let's be clear for everybody, just in case you don't understand or maybe you're new to the sport, when you carry the Atlas stone across the flags and you got to carry it back again, but in between 5 burpees must be completed. So you carry the Atlas ball, you drop it, 5 burpees, you pick it up, you carry it back.
It's one of the few areas in Spartan where you do burpees that are not a penalty.
Right. Now, there's something that we should talk about right now is you see Nicole Miracle running out in front, and I describe this as the difference between chasing someone and being chased. And when you're chasing someone, you're running with intent, and when you're being chased, you're running with fear. Right? It's that, oh God, are they going to catch me? Are they going to catch me? Are they going to catch me? And it keeps you on your toes and aggressive the entire time.
Here's a chance
Chasing
for us to
someone
look at
is more strategy.
Yeah, you're right. Here's a chance for us to look at this technique, see if she uses it.
So she gets a chest over the top, and then you can swing the legs.
Yeah, she actually, you know what's interesting? She actually attacked that a little differently to the way that I was talking about before, which is pretty much I throw pretty much everything over the top and slap it and then boom. But it depends.
Now we see Hammond over there on the Atlas Stone carry, just wrapping hers up ahead of Faye Stenning, ahead of is that Evelyn Lariz or Nell Rojas that we have over there?
That is Nell Rojas that just hit the ground. She is more centered. She just completed that burpee right there as she goes down again.
And someone's hidden behind the tree. We'll see them shortly. And you can see again.
That is Rose Wetzel behind the tree.
Wow, Rose Wetzel staying up here with Rebecca Hammond and some of the rock stars of the sport. I think it's safe to say that Rose Wetzel is back to form.
Yeah, we talked about this. We talked about her confidence. And the more she gets out there and stays with these women, she said that later in the last year when she started coming back, she would get to the start line and she would run afraid. She was afraid to go out hard because she didn't know if she had the fitness. Right now, she's running with purpose and determination, and she is not backing off.
She's in 6th position right now, and if I had to look at those 3 women with Faye sitting in 4th, I would say that Rose looks the smoothest and most comfortable right now, and it's exciting because, as she said, I've beaten all these women before, is what she told me last night. Now I feel like I can do it again.
Fair point.
Yeah, very fair. So, again, moving ahead, Nicole Miracle putting down that blistering pace. She is running into this little muddy bog right here that we encountered yesterday. This is where we decided we were committed fully to destroying our shoes. And we are, and then it's a spear throw. It's spear throw and helix back to back. So hitting the spear for her, and this has been a large problem in the women's field, is consistency with the spear throw across all the athletes.
Let's just watch. This is what we're talking about when we talk about taking your time, right? Getting the heart rate down as quickly as you can.
But
just
not
breathing.
taking too much time. I mean, look, this is only a 10-second gap right now. She's got to take the shot. If I'm running behind her, I'm going to breeze by her close to make her uncomfortable before she throws. So she has to second-guess whether or not she can throw or not.
That's exactly what we just saw.
Yeah.
And here's Tia Reagan with the most pressure she's ever had on her.
And that's a stick. That is a really close stick.
That is a product of the new targets. If that was hay bale, that is coming out.
What we've seen now, we just watched her. She did not like the quality of this spear. Whatever was wrong with it, she wasn't happy, and now she went and pulled out another spear.
That's cost her a good 20
But
seconds.
that is a veteran move by someone who is not used to Spartan yet, because if she did not like that spear, it was worth it for her.
That's a missed spear throw. So again, we're talking about when we said, wow, we have a lot of great athletes in the field, but now we have some novices. That is a 30 burpee penalty. That is really going to take her out of this.
See the disappointment on her face. She shook her head.
She knows. And yet Lindsay Webster now moving into 2nd place if she can hit this spear throw.
We talked about the pressure earlier. You're right behind Nicole Miracle, and you have Lindsay Webster and Rebecca Hammond barking up your backside, and that's what forces a missed spear a lot of the times.
Where experience, as Dave was just saying, and you were just saying as well, it's where experience comes in now.
Rebecca Hammond has now moved into the 4th position, and if she hits her spear, she'll be in 3rd. And Lindsay Webster just took off that tennis ball, so she's still waiting. She's taking her time. And
Missed
missed
the
the
shot.
spear. So now things get interesting because Rebecca Hammond is going to take her shot to move into second. Really all taking their time. You may see Tia Reagan finish these burpees before these girls finish throwing because they're taking so long to get themselves set.
We have Nell Rojas and we have Rebecca still to throw.
Looks like we got a hit. We got a hit from Hammond, and that was a nice throw.
And so does Rojas, the way she just ran out.
Listen, that's a game.
Nailed it.
This is a race-changing, game-changing moment right now for Lindsay Webster. She could not afford to miss that one in the position she's in.
Stick from Rose Wetzel. And the thing that we've always had a hard time with Rose
Look at the smile on her face as she runs away.
Rose has always sat and taken her time on the spear, sometimes taking as much as 45 seconds to throw a spear, which kind of negates the whole point of being there and getting through it quickly. Now Rose is in a position where she can move into the top 5.
I'm with you. Look, let's just unpack this for a little bit, because when I say take your time, I mean take a breath, right?
Take a breath
Take a breath,
and
aim,
then throw.
fire.
But
right?
you should be good enough to throw that spear within arriving at 10 seconds.
Listen,
Natalie
there's
Miano
a nail. See, that's
that was Leanne Wassley. Leanne Wassley.
Wassley's a great
textbook.
spear throw.
Now, if you're watching, that was textbook. Now, my point is this. This is going to be controversial. If you can't hit the spear throw, you've done something wrong. Honestly, this is something you should be able to hit 10 out of 10 times.
At least 9 out of 10.
You can say it to a professional basketball player with a free throw.
All right, so this grip, I think you're looking at Rhea not confident right now. And a miss from Rhea Coble.
This is what I'm talking about.
When you have been competing in this sport for 3 years, this is something you should be doing in your backyard.
It's unacceptable.
For hours until you can do it in your sleep.
It's unacceptable, and the point I wanted to make is I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say the basketball free throw is harder and has more variability than the spear throw.
Much harder.
Look at the size of the target.
I can tell you for a 100% fact that it is harder, and perhaps the change needs to be that only that Spartan logo in the center counts as a hit.
For the sake of argument.
Clearly not, because people can't even hit it.
For the sake of argument, a basketball player isn't doing it with a wet spear that has dew on it, with ground underneath it that's undulating and chaining, and they don't have. What are you talking about? Not gassed. They're walking up the free throw line. They could be plenty gassed, but they're also on the ground.
Had a moment to catch their breath.
Fair enough. But on the ground they're also sometimes stepping on wet and muddy terrains. The throwing platform is not always the same.
Listen,
so there are other challenging variables.
Be a gamer. Choose your spots. But most importantly, if you don't hit your spear, you didn't deserve to win that day.
I'm throwing it out there. You're watching now, or whenever you're watching this, if you're watching the replay, put it in the comments, right? Should you hit a spear throw 10 times out of 10 if you're a top elite or Spartan
9
Pro?
out of 10. Let's give them one.
All right, fine.
You get
okay, yes or no?
Okay, things happen. And right now, that is Ryan Atkins. And I mean, as fuzzy as it is, you know his form right away.
And you know those tights.
And you know those tights.
Yeah.
So we are looking at now an overhead view of Jacksonville, the course, the first stop in the U.S. National Series.
Misty rain just coming in across the course right now.
Gross
it's just dropped
here.
probably 5-10 degrees.
Yeah, it really
Fahrenheit.
has. I'm getting a little shiver in me, actually.
I could get close. I'm going to put.
I don't want to make David jealous. You guys were walking on the beach together yesterday.
Warm me up.
We shared a hotel room too.
Well, we had to talk about some stats.
We did have to talk some stats. And right now, that's Ryan Kempson. And if I'm not mistaken, he's still sitting out there in front. Kempson is coming into the tire flip right now, which is right here behind us. This is the finish line. If he can get this tire flip up and over, Kempson's going to be your winner on the day.
He has held this lead extremely well. This tire is a
no problem for him. Up and over. He's going to come around and lower it down onto his hands rather than try and slip his fingers under it again.
And Ryan Atkins, who's very good at the tires, coming down the fire road right now behind him.
400 pounds. These Yokohama tires are no joke. If you haven't lifted one of these, you got to get out to a race and try it. It is super tough.
He's got to get under this thing. He needs to get one lift, and the race is his. He's under. If he can get a knee under and walk through it.
Ryan is stronger than he looks.
He's going to walk through it. Ryan Kempson is about to win the first stop in the U.S. National Series.
He is pumped.
And he is stoked. Ran away from the field. All he's got to do is come over this A-frame cargo net down the other side. And the 300 points go to him.
So
Ryan Kempson, the smoothest runner in the field.
This is awesome
what did
to
I
watch.
say?
Right behind, you called it. You called it, Magida, but I'm telling
and
you,
he's
he's
just claiming on the
he's
top of the net.
claiming on the top of the A-frame, and he's run just past. He's going to come across a massive fire jump.
Fire. Ryan Kempson, your men's 2019 U.S. National Series Race 1 champion from here in Jacksonville, taking it. Team AMA.
Look at the celebration.
With his brother at the finish line, Matt Kempson. And Ryan Kempson has made a statement. I am here to stay.
Woods.
Behind him.
In the words of 2 Chainz, I don't fear death but dying. I only feel only trying, and he put it all out there today.
Watch this now.
Watch
this. The two of them have finished the tire flip at the same time.
Sprinting
and
for
now
it.
it comes down to who wants it more.
Ryan's
and
gassed.
Woods is putting in the speed. Atkins at his limits right now.
Look, watch
but
this
a more
technique on
proficient
the
climber. Let's see who's going to be the most proficient up over the top.
Race on the A-frame.
Gonna make whoever rolls this the quickest. If someone's willing to risk the body and double roll, 2 rolls is the key. A second roll over the top.
Don't get your feet tangled.
A sprint finish, and Ryan Woods just edging Ryan Atkins for second place and third. That's one of the closest finishes you will ever see in a National Series race.
Tell me that this sport isn't awesome. Tell me it isn't awesome.
Sport.
And we have Ryan Kempson
dismount.
bringing it up for the Ryans in 4th place coming over the cargo
4
net.
Ryans taking it down. And of course, you guys, you called it. Ryan Atkins, always a threat for the podium. Even not at 100%, there he was, nearly taking second.
Let's be super clear. This is very, very important. The points distribution is critical above 5 places. So Kent coming in 4th is a huge thing for him.
To Wint. Nobody expected to see him in the 5th position, but he was injured for the second half of the year last year, missed a ton of running, and he said he was fit coming into this year. We underestimated him. Kirk DeWint finishing only moments behind these guys. But the story of the day is Ryan Kempson running away from the field, dictating the pace for the entire race, and then Ryan Atkins and Ryan Woods battling for that second position.
Here comes the
As
champ.
we see Tyler Veerman coming in 6th position, 6th place, the first big point drop-off.
The champ, Robert Killian.
Here's Robert Killian, never missed a podium at the World Championships.
I said it at the beginning, and I didn't mean it in any sort of negative way. I just felt that he didn't sort of look comfortable running.
Not quite himself.
He said he looked sluggish.
He just looked a little sluggish. I mean, it's early in the season. It could be, just shaking out the cobwebs. I don't think he'll be too worried. There's plenty of opportunities to come back.
It wasn't a large gap between them to him. And is this Johnny Luna Lima?
That is.
Luna Lima.
Look at him go. Isn't he looking fantastic?
He's very smooth
and
as
these
an athlete.
points are critical right now. If he could get Killian at this net, this is valuable points.
It's going to be tough to get Killian. Killian is one of the most obstacle proficient racers out there. He's not going to let anyone pass him on the A-frame.
Robert Killian coming down the A-frame. Now you're seeing some shots of the Stairway to Sparta.
But impressive to me. I'm also very surprised and proud to see Kirk DeWint in 5th, Tyler Veerman in 6th. Those are very important spots, and they have come to make a statement about this year.
And rounding it out right behind us is Brian Gowiski with a strong showing with Bracken Crocker coming up right behind him.
Top 10 finishes, 8th and 9th position out of Brian Gowiski and Bracken Crocker. Close friends, by the way, the two of them.
As we're looking at Ryan Kempson, Ryan Woods, and Ryan Atkins show off the quads after a very fast race.
Yeah.
This is, and we said, we were talking about this before, this was a Kempson course. If we're in the mountains, it may not be an ideal Kempson course. Look at that smile from Brian Gowiski.
Ryan Kempson is the reigning Vermont Killington champion.
They grew up around there. He and his brother, they spent a lot of time on that mountain as kids. I had a race against Ryan where both of us were cramping back and forth racing in Killington a few years ago. A lot of hugs afterwards, but they know that mountain well. They know how to race, particularly there.
If you're watching and you haven't been to Killington, oh man, you've got to get to Killington. You've got to race that course. It is a brutal course.
Brutal climbs, and
David and I have both left a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on that course,
and a lot of vomit as well, actually, on that course. So, for those wondering at home,
this is not a joke.
It's one of the legendary courses in Spartan lore. As Bracken Crocker comes over the top, one of the most well-rounded athletes in the field. I mean, a guy who can throw a baseball at a major league level, dunk a basketball with no problem. His
You're
sister's
telling
in
me
the
he's 360?
I think I heard he could
dunk?
360 dunk a basketball. His sister's in the WNBA, one of the best three-point shooters in college basketball history. His father played in the NFL. He and his brother were All-American track athletes.
A slight sort of
Fairly
genetic
athletic,
theme going on here.
athletic family.
Yeah.
And here we have mostly where we expected our top 10 men to be in some order or another.
Do you think Atkins looked
And we have
stretched to
Aaron
them?
Newell rounding out the back right here. If you don't know
Newell.
much about Aaron,
He's
this
got a
guy
great mullet.
lives out of his Subaru, has 5 ankle surgeries, and he's actually beat Ryan Atkins in a 50-mile trail race.
Well,
so as the season goes on, look for the man in those blue cut shorts, Aaron Newell.
Put it this way. Put it this way: if he keeps up with this and he can sort of climb up the ranks a little bit, he'll be swapping the old Subaru out. Right, and he'll be on his way to the next level.
Yeah, no
I'm
doubt.
not going
There's no
to
question
brand name
about
it.
that. I think we are all very, very pleased with what we've seen out of a number of these newer athletes. Ryan Kempson is the story of the day. Nobody gets to take that away from him. To me, it looked that Ryan Atkins ran at his limits because that's what Ryan Atkins can do. It's what he does. Ryan Atkins tends to push his red line higher than anyone. And here's a man we didn't talk about all day, Ian Hosek, trying to make a move for a top 12, maybe move to 11th place finish.
Isn't this nuts, right? We never would have thought you can see Ryan Kempson #1. We never would have thought that this was going to happen. Woods and Atkins, I mean, look, it was so close. It literally came down to a thread on the shirt crossing the finish line. But but
that's as
effectively,
great a finish as you're ever going to see.
At some point, this is the sport, right? At some point, somebody's going to be second, somebody's going to be third, and there's different points earned by both those guys. It's going to affect them during the season.
And it's been interesting to see. So Atkins has admittedly said, I haven't been doing that much running, but you're seeing he will find a gear to be there. It's just what he has done year after year after year. He finds a way.
What is interesting there is we talked about the proficiency on obstacles of Ryan Atkins and the lack thereof traditionally and historically of Ryan Woods. But when it came down, when they were tied on the last obstacle, Ryan Woods was able to put down the obstacle correctly and beat him across the line with a split second.
Well, and I would say that the gap was closed dramatically by Ryan Atkins on that move. It came down. He actually came off the A-frame in the lead because of that jumping dismount. But Ryan Woods' pure speed and just having a little extra gas at the end gave him that edge. And for those at home wondering, well, how do you know who won officially with times? We go by gun time in a race like this, so whoever crosses the line first. So even if Ryan Atkins had actually lined up further behind on the start line and technically ran the course faster, whoever crosses the line first is who takes that second position.
As opposed to the age group racers that will be going later, they all go by chip time.
Right.
And the ferocity in which those athletes race in is just as much as it is here. Their races are just as important to them as these high-end elites. And that's what's really making Spartan grow. Some of the top athletes we have now that are on the pro team are people that were age group athletes that got better and graduated up.
Let's discuss the age group additions and changes that we're looking at now.
Yeah, I mean, this year in 2019, 10 age groups now, that go up to 60 plus, which is the addition of the 50, 54, 55, 59, 40 to 44, 45, 49. So you're basically seeing a breakout of just very, very popular and strong categories, endurance sports. You tend to see people do quite well right in through their 40s, even through their 50s. But the great thing about age group is that it pits people against their cohort, right? And you called it just then, Kevin. These athletes in age group have the same burning desire, the same ferocity, the same sort of tenacious attitude to get on the podium as the best elites do.
Of course they do. That's Hunter Russell coming in right now. Good old Texan boy, cross-country runner in college, runs a CrossFit box now, and you're going to look for him to emerge.
That's actually an illegal move that he's doing up the cargo net right now. We're not allowed to use the trussing up the center.
So let's be very clear. He has actually broken a rule. This is going to...
Robert Coble is on it right now.
Yeah.
He's going to have to do 30 burpees or recomplete.
So Robert Coble is the head official at this race, and he is going to address this. It is unacceptable, and it is against the rules to use the truss.
That's true. So you need to stay within the slacked netting itself as you come over the top.
Right, the truss, just to clarify, is the silver stuff that you can see, that the 3 lines of silver metal that run through the obstacle there, and interwoven in between is the webbing. That the webbing is where you got to put your hands and feet.
This is what I get for telling Hunter Russell's story, you know. And then all of a sudden
he goes out there and he makes a rookie mistake.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He is still newer to the sport. Great athlete, but very much new to the sport. We have had a few other faces cross the finish line before, including Jordan Buscemi, who had a very strong year. He actually won more races than anyone did last year.
Kempson's at the finish line talking up a storm.
Oh, he's not leaving. He might be there tomorrow.
He'll be there tonight. He'll be there tomorrow.
He's talking all the time.
Johnny Lima. Yeah, it's awesome to see just this group of upcoming new athletes. And if anyone's questioning whether the depth of talent in Spartan is growing or not, I think today's absolutely proven that it is.
Oh, and there's no question that the depth is insane, and yet we still continue to see most of the same names in the top 10, more men emerging. And it doesn't mean that the best that we have are being pushed back each year. It just means that there's more parity than ever. As we just saw
a little smile
Atkins and Woods jogging by,
just jogged
happy.
past our broadcast position here, and Woodsy gave us a bit of a grin. I mean, these guys are, they put everything on the line there at the end.
And that just shows you the camaraderie. And Steve Hammond is walking over to say hello to us as well, who's just ran that course and is going to be heading back out there in a second.
Now,
but just showing the camaraderie of the athletes out there, too.
What we didn't get to see, as we look towards, we didn't get to see some of the happenings on the back end of the course. So what we need to find out now is what obstacles were failed, if any, and how did that shake up the order of the race?
We did not see any footage of the beater. So it's going to be interesting to hear from those athletes what happened back there. You'd have to assume that the top 5 men who finished completed that obstacle, considering how close they were.
The beater, of course, I was just going to say the beater, of course, is sort of like a spinning monkey bars, if you can imagine. It's got 3 grip points. It spins, and then you've got to transition from the spinning bar to a stationary bar, and some are high, some are low.
If you're wondering why they call it the beater, it's because it's very similar to an egg beater.
Right.
It's similar to that.
So as we move forward, we had Nicole Miracle in first position coming out of the spear throw. Big gap. What do we expect? Lindsay Webster, Mr. Spear. Tia Reagan, Mr. Spear.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's Webster is going to have to put in the run of her life to try and make it up to Nicole
And we've
Miracle.
seen her do it. We saw in Asheville a missed spear out of her and her hair getting caught in the barbed wire, and yet still she somehow tracked everyone down. But she had a massive descent opportunity to do so.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm going to stick with what I said earlier. I think that Webster has pretty much given up her ability to win the race by missing that spear throw. If she was ever going to catch Nicole Miracle, she had to nail the spear throw. She didn't. Miracle set just a pace from the beginning, and we called it right. I mean, she took off from the start line. Clearly, as fast as clearly intense, right? 100, 200, 300 feet ahead of the rest, and then she stayed there all day so far.
Yeah, not to mention that the obstacles coming up after that are prone to give people problems are ones that she's very proficient in, such as the twister, multi-rig, and of course the beater.
Things that it requires quality grip strength and hanging grip strength.
That's where that rock climbing ability comes in.
Yeah, so talk about that for a minute. Just help us clarify the difference between those 2 grip strengths.
There are 3 kinds of grip strength that actually exist. You have a support grip, which would be something like carrying a bucket and holding that under your fingers and having your hands not give out and your forearms not give out. That's a support grip. Carrying heavy suitcases or jerry cans or something. You have a pinch grip. A pinch grip would be where you squeeze between fingers and your thumb. That grip is for things like a Z-wall, other traverses like that. And then you have a crush grip. And a crush grip is going to be for squeezing like a bar or a rope. And so it's a kind of a hybrid of support and crush grip, things that you can crush between your fingers and your palm. Is going to be for beater or for monkey bars or multi-rig, your support and crushing at the same time.
And are these 3 types of grip strengths that people should be working on independently of each other? Or
I tell clients that my athletes that I coach, that if you're training for these races, you want to be working your grip strength. So we doing hex grip holds of a dumbbell or plate grips to work on your pinch grip strength, and carrying underneath heavy objects, you know, practicing your bucket carries to build that support grip strength, doing dead hangs and things like that to really work on your strength. To be able to hang from any obstacle for an extended period of time is key.
For someone who is just getting started as well, just taking a towel if you want to work on that crush grip. Take the towel and twist it back and forth, and that'll help work on that as well.
Oh yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. Another thing that they can do if they don't have a rope at their disposal and things like that to practice these climbing techniques, hang a towel over a pull-up bar, and do your pull-ups hanging from the towel. That will teach your hands to grip anything.
Yeah, I think this is the beauty of the sport, right? You know, no matter what level you're at. I mean, if you're seeing this and you even haven't competed or taken part in a Spartan race, it's always somewhere you can start. You know, Kevin, you was talking about if you want to get started on grip street, grab a towel. Who doesn't have a towel? I mean,
if you want to
pretty much everybody but Steve Hammond has a towel.
If you want to work on that support grip, you can grab a trash can in your house, a waste pail basket, put a little bit of weight in there, work on that. As we just saw Lefty Campese, our pro athlete from Georgia, finish his tire. A part of the support strength that David was just talking about that's on the bucket is right here that we're seeing on the tire. Being able to get your hands up underneath that and be able to, with wet, muddy fingers, be able to support that tire as you get it into position to flip.
Look, I don't have a word on this yet, but I'm fairly certain that in the next couple minutes you're going to start to see your top women's finishers rounding in here. And
no doubt.
I think we're going to be seeing Nicole Miracle any moment.
I was just going to say, too, as we saw more tire flips happening, that, you know, make no mistake that, you know, the pause that's happening before the flip is because, number one, it's extremely difficult to get your fingers under the thing.
So hard.
Not just because it's heavy, just the shape of it makes it very hard for you to get your fingers literally underneath.
And this soft earth, it crushes down into it as opposed to lying flat on top of it.
For the viewers watching right now, with the athletes coming over the cargo net right now and doing the tire, just know that many of these athletes are routinely on our podiums that we're seeing coming through now.
It's a great point.
So many races throughout the country. These are our top 3 to top 5 racers, but in a national series race this deep, we're seeing them in the 30s. In the 40s right now.
I don't want to alarm anyone, but I'm watching Ryan Woods cool down off camera right now, and he is walking with a visible limp on his left hip flexor, visibly.
We're watching it behind our broadcast position.
He actually has his fingers in his hip like he's trying to push on something.
He is actually making his way off the course. You won't be able to see this. We don't have a camera on it, but he's walking his way off the course, limping, right?
Yes.
Around the back.
He's been trying to shake it off and jog it off, but it's clearly bothering him. But
I think we've got.
I think we have Ryan Kempson on the way. I'm going to track him down, and I'm going to get rid of Dave Watson.
No.
Everybody wants to.
No.
Listen, well, Dave, you're going to come back later.
I'll be back.
I'm going to get rid of Dave Watson. When we come back, I'm going to talk to Ryan Kempson. We're going to talk to Ryan Kempson. We're going to ask him about how the race went, what happened on the back half of the course, obstacles, and where he looks for this season to go for himself after such a dominant performance in the opening race of the U.S. Championship Series.
As soon as he's here, I'll get out. Everybody's always trying to kick me out.
So if we can get a runner to go ahead and grab Ryan Kempson and bring him over here for his 15 minutes of fame, it's going to be a month of fame, basically. He gets to be the man with the target on his back until Seattle.
This will be news for a long time. It'll be news until the gun goes off at the next National Series race and beyond.
What's great is because of the points that he has earned, even if he goes down to Alabama and, say, finishes out of the top 5, you know, if he's still up there, this is a series. It's about taking all those points into the very end.
And let's not forget about the cash that he just won today. Prize winnings are huge at these championship events.
And he loves the beach. This is a guy who loves to camp out wherever he goes. He might actually be able to stay in a hotel now.
We can ask him yourself. I'm going to jump out off this position. Let's give him the headset.
We call this the hot swap. What's happening right now is David Watson is taking a break, and in steps Ryan Kempson, your men's champion from the day.
What's up, homie?
Hey, buddy.
Congratulations.
It's a family here. So, Ryan.
Yo, what's up, guys?
I was telling everybody that you're the smoothest runner in the entire field.
He did. That is, and he said that at the beginning before the race even started.
Before it began.
Yeah, I take some pride in moving well out there and looking good. You know, you look good, you race good.
And we talked a bit about the hip mobility work that you do on a regular basis because of all the issues that you've had in the past.
Yeah, you know, I came from a non-running sport, had surgery 3 years ago, And it's been a slow build as far as becoming an endurance athlete. And to compete with these guys that are just phenomenal and they're so fit and they've had such an extensive background and experience, I got to do a little something extra, and I make sure my hips move well, my body's fluent, and you just have to cut those little percentages down to try to close the gap between me and them.
Now, you just took the first race in the U.S. National Series. This is your first National Series victory. I'm not even sure how many podiums you had in National Series before this.
That's my first
Your
podium. Yeah.
And how do you feel?
Feel pretty good. Honestly, I had a little motivation last night. Spartan put up their Instagram post of the 3 Ryans, and I wasn't included, which, rightfully so. I probably haven't proved myself to the masses yet, and that was a little notch in the belt last night that I wanted to prove everybody wrong.
Well, I mean, we mentioned you last night. They talked about the 3 Ryans, and I said don't leave out Kempson.
How is it today? I mean, we know the rivalry you have with your brother.
Yeah.
But you guys are very close.
Yes.
Being that this is your first podium, a race this big, to have your brother standing at the finish line for you, waiting for you, and genuinely cheering for you and showing you the love that he has for you, what did that make you feel?
Brotherly love, it's amazing to have someone to support you like that, and family in general. Matt and I mean, we got into racing together, and we're fortunate to have a really loving family. I love everybody out there. And it's a different feeling when you race and you have family members there cheering you on.
Yes.
It gives you an adrenaline pump. It gives you motivation as you go. Because you're digging deep, you're dying, and you're pushing hard trying to beat everybody. And there's some low places in a race, and to have you come around the corner and your brother's telling you where you are in the race, how you're doing, and motivating you, it feels good.
Talking about digging in this race, it's one thing to say maybe come from behind at the end when somebody misses an obstacle. You basically led this from the beginning. You were top 2 from the beginning, and then you took it wire to wire after that. What did that feel like with the pressure of the men running behind you, knowing the caliber they are, with the fitness that you have right now?
I trained specifically for this race, talking to a lot of guys. It was apparent that everybody's fit coming in, but I don't know how many people trained specifically for this race because it was so early on in the year. I mean, it didn't have much of an off season. I knew Woods was the fastest guy out there. I mean, he proved that last year. And unfortunately, he got caught in the barbed wire at the beginning of the race. His leg was really getting torn open on it. And so I got a gap on him there. And the rest of the race, I knew if I could hold a 5:15 to 5:30 pace, it was going to be hard for him to catch me. And if he did, he was going to be tired. And I think it showed because he got, 12, 20 seconds behind me at Twister. And I think he got caught up a little bit on it. And that's where the last little gap happened.
We talked about you guys are going to be averaging probably about 520 miles through this course.
Yep.
It seems like it's a number that you want to look at your watch and you say, I'm happy hitting this pace. I know I'm putting the field in discomfort. And then simultaneously, we talked about strategy, putting a guy who's as fast as Woods into stress on the obstacles, redlining him and making him have to be really precise on them rather than letting him get out away. Was that your plan moving in?
That's my plan in any race, no matter who I'm racing against. My brother and I always say you accelerate in and you accelerate out, so the person behind you has stress and they have to go faster. You don't want to allow them to catch you through those. Even if you only gain maybe a second or two, when you're behind someone and you get an obstacle, you come out and you look up and that person ahead of you is accelerating, that puts a lot of stress on them. And if you do that, you can maybe force them to make a little bit of a mistake.
How'd you feel about those deep, wet spots in the backside of the course?
You know what? I love running in technical stuff, but that was tough. And then that lake was horrible. You get in and it's chest waist deep, and you had to put so much effort in, and you're not going anywhere at all. But if you take off just a little bit of effort, you literally stop. And that was exhausting right before the end.
So looking forward to the season, because I know I've always said you're one of the best flat ground runners that we have here.
Dave, you always say that, and it really irritates me,
I'm
honestly.
Sorry.
I said it before.
I'm new to endurance.
Champ.
It's, the flat was good for me because I wasn't in shape, and I'm building those miles and I'm getting more fit. And, as you become a better runner, the hills become easy and everything. So, I guess I have a lot to prove this year, but as my running gets better, it's not just the flat courses. I'll be able to open up on the mountains too and hopefully contend with everybody.
We're excited to see that. I've been advocating that this is a year that you're going to break out and be in that upper echelon.
Yeah.
And it's a good ascent of courses in terms of how they gradually become steeper. Yeah. You get to adapt your training to make that fit. How do you see this season shaking out?
Who knows? There's so much competition this year. I mean, you had you probably had 11 or 12 guys that could have contended for the podium today if they had a good day. The field's so deep. It all depends on, look, Atkins is more fit than me. Woods is more fit than I am. But I just happen to have a good day today, and I think that's how the whole season's going to go. Whoever has a good training block leading up to a race and puts it all on the line and puts it together, that's what will happen.
This is
They also have to have the courage to do what you did today and
Yeah.
be
You
able to
ran
say,
gutsy.
I'm going to run out in front of this group of world-class athletes and hold them off the entire time. That was the performance that you've been looking for your whole life in the sport.
That goes back to having a good family. My brother, we give each other a lot of confidence. And beyond my family, honestly, I talk to Woods a lot, and he's given me a lot of confidence through the past few years, telling me I can do it and I'm capable of it. And it's nice having a friend that's, whether he's just saying to build up my confidence or not, hearing that from someone's nice. But you do have to believe in yourself. And even when I started racing and I was not the best, I always believed that I could race with the top guys. And it wasn't just a dream. I knew I had a skill set, and if you believe in yourself, that's the only way you're going to make it work.
And for the viewers watching, Ryan, David, we all have, personal friendships and relationships outside of this. This is something that he's been saying for years.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's all come to an accumulation right down here in Jacksonville, the first race of the U.S. National Series.
I know, it's huge.
And it wasn't like, this wasn't like this was the first race of the year. This was the greatest collection of talent that we have in the sport right now that we could have established.
I'm incredibly excited because you and I had a really fun rivalry back years ago when you emerged on the scene, and I'm just so proud of the evolution that you've had as an athlete, as you've really grown and hit this next level. And I know you think I give you hell about your running and terrain and stuff like that, but
Hey, that's what it's about. You motivate and you talk a little trash, throw some shade at people.
To show you how bad his injury was, the first time I met Ryan I was actually passing you on the course. That's how hurt you were. Look at you. I mean,
and so we have just heard word that we have the first woman on Stairway to Sparta, so they are going to be coming in towards this finish line in a matter of moments. We don't have drone coverage right now because the rain has started coming down pretty hard, but as soon as they clear into this festival area, you're going to have updates. And in terms of the coverage of the finish, Nicole Miracle way out in front, and a huge pack of women competing for second, third, fourth, fifth, the key points in this U.S. National Series. Right now, wrapping up a huge win, Ryan Kempson. First U.S. National Series podium, first U.S. National Series victory, and 300 huge points for the series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations,
Thanks,
Ryan.
I really appreciate
well
it.
done.
Job well done,
AROO.
man. We're going to stay tuned, guys. We're going to get this finish in here. A massive, incredible, competitive finish for the
We'll
women's
get Dave
field
back
on the
next
back
to
end.
us.
Dave Watson's coming back to join us.
Take care,
in a
man.
moment.
Great job.
And so
proud of that man.
Yeah, Ryan, you've seen a huge evolution of an athlete from basketball player to racing novice to racing expert. And you hear the way he talks about training blocks and his cycles and everything he's going through and the work that he does to prepare his hips and his back. People don't understand that he was not able to compete for like a year because of his back issues and his hip issues. So to get to where he is now, the effort that he's put in just to the mobility and then to take his fitness up a level, each year it's come up another notch higher in terms of his competitive levels. He was finishing in the top 15, then the top 10, then the top 5. And last year he had a few statement races where he nearly pulled some huge victories. This is the first of, I think, many.
And for all those watching, it's a perfect example and a testament that you didn't have to grow up as a cross-country runner or a track athlete to be a dominant Spartan racer. As long as you have athleticism, you work hard, train smart. If you have the talent, it's something that you could go into. And that's what we're seeing now is the evolution of all these different athletes coming to the sport that are now being dominant without their cross-country backgrounds.
You know what? We've got Robert Killian standing right here. I think I'm going to jump back out. I think you guys should have a quick word to him. I was just chatting to him while you guys were speaking to Kempson, and he said, finishing where he did today is exactly where he wanted to be, and everything's working. So maybe we can talk to him for a couple of minutes.
It's something a strategist would say. Wow. So apparently word just came in. Nicole Miracle has a 10-minute lead on the rest of the field, and a lot of that has to do with the burpees that ensued post spear throw. I would presume to say that burpees occurred on beater, possibly 8-foot box. We don't know what happened over there. That's a new obstacle as well. But in the booth right now, joining us after a 7th place finish at the first race of the U.S. National Series is the 2015 champ himself, Robert Killian.
Robert, there is carnage going out there right now on the women's course on the backside. What does the beater look like? Because that's something that we've been talking about. You've went through it. Tell us about how challenging that was today.
Yeah, so right about the halfway point, this mist, and you can see rain kind of moved in, and it made a lot of those obstacles very challenging. Like you guys are saying, the 8-foot wall, it's very slippery on that top. They've got a kind of like a plastic ledge at the top of the rope, and it's a hard transition to try to get up there. So what we had on the beater, I was running with Yatsko. We were like, pacing each other, going through the woods, and he tried this crazy kipping move to skip one of that middle bar, and just slipped right off. And I even got to it.
Yatsko?
Yeah, Yatsko slipped off. Had to do burpees. We were side by side, and Johnny was right behind me, and we were all battling for that.
Johnny Luwalina?
Yeah, he was on pace. I mean, I came out here. I just wanted to see where my fitness was. Had a couple weeks, to train, taking off some time after Japan and Iceland. But I'm excited with my finish today. I have no regrets. I came out here, I felt healthy, I'm just not fit yet. That'll be a different story in Alabama.
Would you say that the flat terrain was not really what you've been specializing in, training for? We know you're great in the mountains.
Yeah, I think, every athlete has their course and terrain that they're really good at, that they excel at. So they came out here. There's a lot of guys that, prepared for this specific race so they can rack up on some early points. Mm-hmm. It's a long season. It's a long U.S. National Championship Series, a lot of different venues, a lot of different terrain. And I love that about Spartan, how you can have a flat course, you can have a mountain course, you can have something like in between in Seattle, and you can see different guys on the podium. It's not the same person every time. Big props to Ryan Kempser. He went out there and just crushed it today.
How did
Kempson
you feel
well.
about the pace that he threw down early?
I loved it. I got to sit back and kind of watch, and I was like, okay, those guys are a minute. They're 50 seconds ahead. Then it started increasing. But it was tough terrain out there. A lot of people was like, oh, it's a flat course. It's a flat course. But it was rugged. I mean, it was very undulating terrain. Mm-hmm. We were going through swamps. We were going through water. It was not your typical flat, fast course. I mean, there's a lot of things out there to slow people down. And I'm excited to see this girls finish. I mean, Nicole's out there just smashing it, but...
Well, we've been told that the ladies, Nicole's winning by 10 minutes.
She's killing it. She's not here yet.
What we have is we have a battle for second place right now with Lindsay Webster. And if I could tell you one athlete that's on her tail right now, who'd you guess?
Maybe Rose.
Yes,
Wetzel.
You called it.
There we go.
Rose Wetzel.
So Rose Wetzel is in the mix for a podium spot today, which is... Nicole,
I think
Lindsay, Rose, and Rebecca Hammond now.
This is a course that has Rose written all over it. I mean, she's out for blood. I'm gonna tell you right now.
She's serious in a way that I haven't seen her in a while. It's very exciting. I know you mentioned going out fast and not having to do that. We remember 2016 where every race was the Robert Killian trying to explode the field year.
It is, and I might bring that back later toward the season. But right now, I kind of like that sitting back and trying to finish strong, mentality. It alleviates a lot of pressure, but at the same time, it's so important in obstacle course racing, and I kind of learned that a little bit today, or reiterated that when you're back, 6, 7, 8, 9, some of those first obstacles they're very time consuming because you got to, go around other guys, you got to go down a different lane, you got to really, focus on where you're going. And yeah, there was a lot of challenging obstacles today. I really like the helix. That's one that you get in, you're like, oh, this is going to be easy, but sometimes you can, crisscross your hands or put your hands or feet in the wrong spot. And all of a sudden, it's a really challenging obstacle. You got to sit back and think about it.
It's different for sure. There's no question about that.
Certainly an obstacle that's going to cause people to have to practice it so they could get that fast flow and not drain their energy.
And so we're about to see Nicole Merkel burst out of these woods with a massive lead. And there she is. She's on the vertical cargo net. Yeah. She's going to come over the top. All she has to do to claim the first win of the season over a incredibly deep field and a dominant win is simply flip this tire twice. So she's over the top, no injuries coming over the vertical cargo net.
Yeah, we talked about her ability running into this. It was basically kind of the perfect storm of her abilities. Her ability to run the flat, faster kind of courses, but be able to handle the undulating terrain. And on a day today where the grip strength was going to be important with all these different new obstacles, she was obviously able to navigate all those, hit her spear, and translate into a 10-minute win.
Look how easy she flips this Yokohama tire. So she's up and through. She doesn't even look like she's fatigued. She looks like she just had a training run. She actually never had to push. She never redlined. Nicole Miracle is coming into the A-frame cargo net, claiming 300 points in the 2019 U.S. National Series Race 1. And all she has to do is casually, comfortably work her way over the top.
That's a good feeling. I love that feeling when you have a comfortable lead. You can come in and enjoy the win, enjoy it. And she works hard. I mean, we're from Colorado. We don't really train together, but I see her out there all the time in Boulder.
The way she ran today, you should
coming
be
down for
her.
Altitude. I mean, yeah, that's why she looks so fresh.
Not only is it enjoyable, what in your point of view, as we're going to watch Nicole run across right here.
Miracle coming off the A-frame cargo net and over the fire, claiming first place for the Women's U.S. National Series Race 1 from here in Jacksonville. Your champion of the day, Nicole Miracle. Exciting. And she crushed the field.
Absolutely crushed it. And the way that she did it, Robert, when she was able, with a 10-minute lead, I mean, she doesn't maybe know it's 10 minutes, but she knew it was big. Being able to coast and take that the foot off the gas, throughout the course of the season, do you think that's going to allow her to have a little less stress, mental stress going into the other races, knowing that I put one away in the bag and it was kind of like an easy race for me?
Yeah, the points this year are huge. There's a little bit of a difference in the previous years. You know, there's a big gap between first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. But after fifth, I mean, it drops off quite heavily. So to have those points early, to know that you know, on a strong course going into Alabama, especially, I think it's going to be pretty similar to this terrain. Yeah, she's going to be coasting and feeling good. But it's a long season.
So now when we look at like second through fifth, and you were talking about, obviously Lindsey Webster pulls herself back in, like never starts fast, never gets nervous. And then you look at the other names in this field, Rebecca Hammond, proving that she's still a force, but Rose Wetzel coming up. Rhea Coble not even in this, but you know that she is, and some of these newer faces like Nell. I mean, you look at the women's field, and it's possibly more impressive than the men's now.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely stacked. I mean, the Loof today, you know, the spear is a difficult obstacle at times. They have this addition this year. They put a tennis ball so it wouldn't, you know, stick into the foam as far. So I think that, you know, played with the girls' mentality a little bit, just throwing it. Even my spear throw was super. I throw hard. And when that tennis ball hit, it almost like the absorption almost bounced it back out. And I was like, whoa. I was like, that was an awesome throw. Don't fall out.
We saw two interesting things in the spear with the women. We actually saw Nicole Miracle threw. It was actually a terrible throw. And the very little tip got in there and it hung almost down. Completely vertical, but stuck. That's something that wouldn't happen in the hay. And we also saw Lindsey Webster pull the tennis ball off. And then
that's a strategy. I am going to take that note.
Don't take our word for it. That may be a new rule implementation after this.
Yeah.
But
that will be a Coble adjustment after this one. Robert Coble, who's our head official. But she wound up missing the target completely anyway, so it was kind of a moot point.
So right now, I mean, not every race is going to be this way in the women's field. I think what we had is a number of failed obstacles. It's wet and slick out there. It's going to impact. We thought there could be some issues for some of these newer female racers in the beater obstacle. And also, that 8-foot box is
challenging.
Is
I
weird.
mean, it's not something you think you can come up to it and just jump right on it. You don't even need the rope. But I'm telling you, there's this little like circular ledge right on the side, and you can't get your hands on top of it. So you got to get a good muscle up, grab that bar, and either throw a leg or just push up on the platform. It's not easy.
I ran a lap of the course yesterday, and Dave Watson told me, go try that obstacle, and I just I skipped the rope. I think the key is to skip the rope if you can get your elbows up and over, and then get your chest up and over. That's the key.
I'm thinking the game changer for third, fourth, fifth is going to be that beater right now.
That beater's going to be a huge obstacle.
Yeah, I want to get a camera on those girls over there and see what's going on for this exciting finish.
So, guys, Rose Wetzel is apparently in second place.
Okay.
Didn't fail beater, but Lindsay and Becca both failed beater. So
see, there you go. I just called it.
Talk about how your strategy works in beater, like what it is. We have a rotating series of bars that are attached. They look like an egg beater. And you have to swing from that to a high bar.
Correct. So beater's all about momentum, and especially when you're out here, it's more about matching. So what you want to do going into those first bars, when it's dry, you know, it's warm. The sun's been hitting those bars. It's a completely different animal. But when you're out here, you know, there's this mist, there's this rain, there's a little bit of dirt on that turns into mud. You've been running, you've been going through. So what you got to do is you got to double hand, kind of go sideways, match your hands so that you have both arms and, you know, that stability. The big thing for me is when you get on that first beater bar, you got to use your hips, kind of kip, and get that momentum to lift you all the way up to that bar where you can get a hand on it.
So you do it in one initial grab and go, no swinging backwards.
I had to swing backwards today because, again, it's wet. I didn't expect it when I got there. Usually I can do one hand and then swing up and grab, but I had to do two. So I had to get a little bit of extra momentum. That's where you need a strong core. You need those strong hips.
Right.
You need to be able to throw those legs up, and on that back, you only get one shot. So you got to nail it. You got to grab that high bar. And Rose is, you know, she's got a great background in climbing. She's really strong upper body. She's got, you know, the technique. I saw her do it a couple times yesterday.
She's savvy and confident on obstacles, always has been smooth. And Rose Wetzel is on the verge of stealing second place in the first U.S. National Series race. This is pretty mind-blowing. Yeah. I think all of us who thought she was going to have a race never saw it going to be.
Yeah, she's putting a ton of work in the gym, working on those kind of more ninja-esque obstacles, and it's really paying off today.
It's actually, as Kevin was pointing out,
here they come around the corner, and it is a sprint.
Who do we have in here?
We have Rose Wetzel sprinting up behind Lindsay Webster right now at the vertical cargo net. This is a battle to the tire. Lindsay Webster just got over first. Rose Wetzel just hopped on the box.
Don't discount Rose and her ability to get this tire flipped and to sprint fast. She's about 7 or 8 seconds behind right now, but Rose has that track speed. If she's willing to go for it, she's going to have to do a massive quick dismount. She shouldn't take the risks.
Lindsay Webster flipped it with ease right now. That was no problem for her at all. Now it's just going to be about a sprint.
Rose Wetzel is going to have to settle for third today. She needed to take a few chances on that vertical cargo net. And there is Rebecca Hammond behind her, trying to maybe track her back down. 2 flips from Rose.
Regardless of whether or not Rebecca Hammond takes third today, it is still going to be a huge monumental effort for her. But for Rose Wetzel to come back after being at the top of the sport, having a baby, and then coming back like Serena Williams right now, cementing herself.
Rebecca Hammond could easily close this gap. Rose is taking her time a little too much.
Rose is having a hard time getting her fingers under those tires.
Oh, this is coming down to the wire now. Rose has got to get underneath that. She's got to get her hands underneath. There's something wrong with her grip.
Rebecca slipped.
Rose Wetzel's pushing. She's trying to take third, and Rebecca Hammond is only 2 seconds behind. So here comes the big finish as Lindsay Webster finishes in second. But it's Rose and Rebecca Hammond who's going to climb the fastest now for third place.
This is going to be a battle.
In the first race of the U.S. National Series here in Jacksonville. Rose is going to need to stay aggressive. Rebecca is out climbing her right now.
Rebecca closed the gap as Rose
looking
slips.
like she's at her limits. She might be out of gas.
Rebecca has passed her as they're cresting the top.
The most aggressive descent now. Yep. So 2 rolls. Whoever takes a second roll.
Watch that bar.
Who's going to take a third? Rose Wetzel, can you dismount faster? It's a sprint, and here's Rose. Third place from Rose Wetzel, and 4th for Rebecca Hammond.
When is the last time we saw a back and forth on the cargo net?
Yeah, 2 cargo net photo finishes. An amazing day.
And we have Alyssa Hawley, it looks like, coming over the top as well.
Rose Wetzel back on the podium.
And Alyssa Hawley, who nobody gave credit for her flat round running today, still came in and makes a top 5, taking 4th.
Final top 5. Here we go. So your top 5 women today: Lindsay Webster. Oh, excuse me. Nicole Miracle taken first by a mile. Lindsay Webster in second. Rose Wetzel, blast from the past, in 3rd place. So proud of her. 4th place, just behind a hair. Photo finish, 4th place. Rebecca Hammond and Alyssa Hawley rounded it out.
That was as much drama as we've ever seen at any race on a cargo net on both sides.
Heck of a race.
And it's a battle up there. I think a lot of people don't realize when that cargo net is loose, you saw Rose on that second. She'll smash that bar. So there's a support bar. A lot of people don't realize that you got to watch yourself going down that fast, but she went for it. She didn't care. She's gutsy, and it's an obstacle course race. I mean, that's awesome that it came down to obstacle proficiency and not necessarily a run sprint to the finish.
It was incredible. We watched the same thing happen with Ryan Atkins and Ryan Woods. Atkins was behind, closed on Woods, came off the net a split second in front of him, and then the speed of Woods just finished it.
For the viewer watching who doesn't do Spartan, the energy it takes to go up a cargo net that fast after doing this race, it's absolutely exhausting. You saw a top athlete like Rose Wetzel slip and fall going up.
I thought she was out of gas. I thought she was totally out of gas.
It was all guts and heart by both of them.
So there you have it again. Nicole Miracle, first place in the U.S. National Series, race 1 here in Jacksonville. Lindsay Webster, Rose Wetzel, Rebecca Hammond, and Alyssa Hawley rounded out. So a lot of familiar faces. I want to point out, we said we were going to have a lot of new names, and yet the same people keep showing up. Rebecca Hammond is that newer one, but I'd say Rose is the big surprise of the day. Very proud of her. And on the men's side, I mean, we have a little bit of mix-up, but a lot of the usual suspects again.
You know what? We talk about the depth of the field. It also shows you that the athletes that we've had pioneering this sport for the last couple years have been that good because they're withstanding the punch of everybody else, like ladies like Natalie Miano right now, who's pushing up that tire.
I'll tell you, Miano is turning into a heck of an athlete.
Leanne Wasley, I'm sorry. They're wearing the same
She's
outfit today.
turned into a heck of an athlete as well. Wasley has been consistent. She typically settles right around that 6-7 position, despite no matter how deep the field is.
And that is a huge placing for her, finishing 6th in this series.
I have a feeling we're going to have Rose Wetzel joining us in this booth shortly.
And you know, one of the things about the series and racing is it's about building momentum and building confidence. And her coming out here, you know, early on, I think that's just going to supercharge her for the next few races.
Motivation.
You know, you get that motivation. You go back and train a little bit harder. You find out what your shortcomings are in this first race. And you know, even Rhea.
And give Rhea Cole
This will be good
credit.
for Rhea. She needed something to light a fire under her, I think, this year. And
That's what I'm saying.
Similar to you. You needed something to light a fire under you. Now you have something.
You got to
to
see where you're at.
Season.
You got to, you know, like Rhea and I, we went out to Iceland. I went out to Japan. That was only 4 or 5 weeks ago. So you need a little bit of an off season. You got to reassess where you're at early, and then go back, you know, and see where everyone else is,
and I think
prepare for those next races.
It's the opposite for someone like Rose, who was at the top of the sport, just one of the best females that we've seen in this sport, and really in its history. She was so dominant for a couple years, and then to fall out of the top 10. This, for her, is the confidence boost that she needs to feel like she belongs and that she's training the right way and doing the right things, and that will keep her fires burning.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly exciting, and I was hoping, you know, to see that in Amelia last year. And it's just one of those things where it's not as easy as everyone thinks. You know, I won the World Championship in 2015. I've been trying to get back on top of that podium for 3 years, 3rd in a row. I mean, I was able to pull it out in West Virginia for the North American Championship. But it's not, I mean, the field is getting, you know, stronger and stronger. It's not as easy as
we're seeing.
We've said the
same
men and women are still just as competitive at the top of the field. There's just more of them now. No one has come in and just blown the field away, and I don't think that's going to happen.
And
but
we
here's
have
Faye standing over here.
Right around in 10th place. We had, while you guys were talking, we had Tia Reagan was able to hang on for a top 10, as well as Nell Rojas. And here is Faye. Give her credit, you know. This just shows the depth of the field. We had a couple new people come in and hold her off today.
We talked about the concept of Tia Reagan being a little bit newer to the sport, coming out and setting the pace in the women's race early. She tried to dictate the pace for the first mile and a half. And we said maybe a bit unwise because you're a little newer. And we know with McCole, you know what you're getting with that. It's a little bit different when it's more of a novice. And we're seeing some of those women that are great athletes, but it's a little humbling what Spartan can do to you when you're out there with a really deep field trying to overrun a little.
You know what we could, and as much as we say it about, you know, Tia and Nell, who were able to hang on and have respectable top 10 finishes.
Yes, very.
And then you had a guy like Ryan Kempson who took it almost wire to wire and held off, you know, absolute studs like Robert sitting next to me.
I think Tia and Nell are going to have really bright futures in this sport. It's just like you have to learn from these experiences. You have to have some failures in order to get to your successes. Nobody just comes in like a Robert Killian and just wins world championships in their first year. And I think, Robert, you know, like some people were like, is this guy a fluke? Is this guy real? And then you had to prove it year after year after year.
And I'm at 80 races this year. I'm third overall right now for podiums all time in just 3 years. So I'm trying to build that legacy and prove all the nearsayers wrong. But it takes time. I mean, one of the things I think I need to focus on is just, like you said, getting back to what makes me successful. Get back on a good course that I know that I'm strong at, and rebuild that confidence and toward the end of the season.
Absolutely. And we just saw again the top 5 women for the day. Nicole Miracle is the story of the day. I would say Nicole Miracle is the racer of the day, but Rose Wetzel is the story of the day.
Yeah, and Kimson. I mean, Kimson's there. I raced against him in Florida all the time I come down here, and I knew he was going to be a strong contender today. I mean, it's just been we've battled it out in the Stadium Series. We've battled it out South Florida 2 years ago.
Crazy.
I mean, I knew he was going to be a contender, and he's really good at the things that you do outside of running. He's really great at keeping his agility up, mobility. He's a coach, so he knows those things that you need to do to keep all of your stabilizer muscles, in my opinion, that were really big today on this undulating terrain.
Yes.
Having to go through the swamp, having to go through, a lot of that, the other runners will get beat up, but he works so hard on those muscle groups outside of just speed work that I think that's why he was able to put together the total package today.
Yes, and of course, his obstacle proficiency, he's very smooth.
Oh, yeah.
Everything that he does smoothly. You can tell he's a well-rounded athlete as a whole.
As we have all these ladies that are just finished the race, we were rounding out with Ashley Heller there coming in the top 10. And she's somebody that's just crossing the finish line now. And that is a group of current legends, a blast from the past at Rose, who's trying to get herself back up there and made a major statement today, and some of the new young blood coming into our sport.
Of course. And can we talk, Robert, while I have you here, a couple guys that ran strong races today with you. Kirk DeWint.
Yes.
Top 5 finish from him.
Yep, so Kirk and I were working a little bit together at the beginning. I was like, hey, man, it's a little bit easier for us to try to pace and hold these guys off who are running by themselves. So let's for about a mile, we worked together, and he just had more gas in the tank. Tyler Veerman, who I used to coach.
Veerman is the other one I was going to mention.
He's up in the mountains. We battled it out in Breckenridge for the Mountain Series, and I knew he was going to be a strong contender. We ran together last year in Seattle when I was kind of battling that injury, but to see him come out and do as well as he did today was awesome. And yeah, it was fun to be back there with those guys and, to be still in contention. I mean, we weren't far behind. We were about a minute and a half. We were getting time splits as we were going through the obstacles. So I think it was, it was just a gutsy race today. And, again, an assessment of where everyone's fitness is. And I think it is just going to keep getting more and more intense as we go to Alabama, as we go to Seattle, as we get to Utah. I mean, it's just going to be an exciting season.
Well, that's the nice thing about a flat course is you get a really good sense of baseline fitness, as opposed to if this was a mountain course, the gaps can be spread so dramatically, so quickly from one big climb that it doesn't give you an accurate sense necessarily of where everyone lies. This is just like get out and run. Yep. Show us what you got.
Yep, that's exactly a correct assessment. And like you said, I mean, in Big Bear last year, Ryan Atkins got me by about 10 minutes, and I was at 4th place. And then we get to Tahoe, and they're only, 30, 40 seconds. So it's like it's just one of those things where you're correct. You don't know where you're at on a big mountain course like that necessarily, but every single venue, every single race is different. So it's good to be able to excel on a flat course, like myself, Rhea, Alyssa. If you look like we kind of finish towards, the same spots depending on where the venue is. On a big mountain course, or if it's something that's going to be more bushwhacking, as Trailmaster Hammond likes to call it, out there, we're going to, be on top of the podium. But for a race like this, we need to go back and improve in some areas, and that's what I like about Spartan. You're not always going to be successful. You kind of learn from those things, go back to the drawing board. Hey, what do I need to increase in my training? And then take it on.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing what you got coming on. But we have the woman of the hour, and that is Nicole Miracle, who put on the most dominant performance of any athlete today to start off the U.S. National Series here in Jacksonville. Nicole, we're just doing the hot swap. Informal. Come on in here. What's
Sit
up?
down, champ.
What's up?
So you only won by 10 minutes today?
How much? It wasn't actually 10
It was
minutes.
like actually 10 minutes.
What?
We don't know the exact number.
Oh,
well, I
man.
don't know the exact number. We'll find out. But
Right.
It was.
Wait. This is what I want to know.
Okay.
Where was I overall? How many? Who on the?
It's hard to say because it was a 15-minute gap. But like.
I want to know what guys I beat.
You're going to be up there. You're going to be up there for sure. It was. Now, were there any obstacle issues out there for you?
I mean, they were challenging because of the moisture, but
clean race.
But clean, yeah. I had a clean race. Yeah.
So we were assuming, and it's hard for you to know, that some of the gap developed from obstacle failures from some of your competitors. I know
Beater got a lot of people. The rig got a lot of people.
The rig.
And then Twister got at least Nell and Faye failed Twister.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a huge shakeup. There was a spear throw shakeup as well. You were gone.
That's what I heard.
But it was like chaos.
I was nervous.
It was chaos. I mean,
because mine. Did you see it? Like it tipped.
Teetering.
And I
saw
was like,
you
I
double
gotta get out of here.
You double looked at it. You were like a couple peeks.
Well, then I almost ran into the new girl. What's her name?
Tia.
Tia. Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about the way the race shook out, because we said, oh, Nicole's going to come out of the gates hot. This is what you like to do. You like to pressure the field. But Tia decided to take that over from you.
Which I was fine with. I was like, yeah, sure. You want to take it? But then I kind of got like a little like edgy, I think, in the sandbag. I was like, no one's passing me in this. This is my year to not be destroyed by the carries.
And we said, I think you were, at that point, we said, we're willing to bet you're very comfortable and happy that the person that's pushing you the most is fairly new and inexperienced, and you have that big experience advantage when it comes to these obstacles.
Yeah, even at the hoist, she, I think, took a long time to maybe lower it, and I was just like, oh, yeah, she's really new. She's going to probably be, like, a little bit slower on everything. So I kind of, like, had this, like, mental battle in my head when I realized I had a gap on her. I was like, oh, I think I can, like, ease up a little. But I was like, no, you can't do that. Like, you don't know what could happen. Like.
So that first half of the race, how hard did you say you were working?
I took it out a little too hard, probably. But, I mean, only for the first, like, 400 meters. And Tia passed me, and then she, like, had the lead for a little bit, and then I took it back. So overall, I'm comfortable with how fast I took it out. Yeah.
And then towards the second half of the race, I mean, it looked like you jogged in. Like, you came out from a stroll. I mean, how early did you get to shut that down? Spear throw?
After the spear throw, I knew, like, if I just keep – I was pretty confident that I could like be close to anybody and outkick them and outrun them, or like do like obstacles a little faster than Tia or whatever. But that's when I kind of had that like change in my like mental game that like, no, you can't ease up, you can't like take things for granted at all.
Of course.
So
we're talking about Nell, we're talking about Tia, and we're talking about two athletes that have literally just come into the sport and are pushing the top women that have been the guard for the last few years. How cool is it to know, and how intimidating it is as well, to know that these ladies are coming in with rarely no experience and are able to push you hard and are fearless. It's almost kind of like the freshmen in college that plays in the national championship game that don't know how big the stage is, and then they just go after it with zero fear. How does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, so I don't know if you remember, but Nell actually beat me.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in
California. Now, I don't know the
story
story behind that. Did you make a mistake, or did you just feel like she outran you?
I did fail the spear, but at that point, like, I mean, it was like a month ago, I guess, I thought that Nell was fitter than me. And so I thought if she doesn't fail anything, she's probably going to beat me.
And do you still feel that way?
But I ran like neck and neck with her. And so I think that maybe we would have been close. She was like, oh, if you didn't fail your spear, you would have beat me. But I think it would have been closer.
How much of that is mental? What is she just telling you that,
she's
right?
playing mind games with me.
Talking about your fitness when you're talking about, like, hey, this, she's not going to pass me on the carry. That's not going to happen like it used to back in the day. I remember a few years ago how intimidated you were by the heavy carries and the escalations that they were getting heavier. You made a true commitment to not only work on that part of it, but your whole obstacle game. How do you feel like your obstacle game, like 2-3 years ago, has evolved to now into your success?
Well, so I don't know if you can tell, but I've got like 5 to 7 more pounds of muscle on me.
Yeah, you got a lot
of frame on. We were talking about how lean you were before and like how you have muscles now.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I got some.
Look at
I've
those
always had
guns.
these biceps.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not just the strength difference. It's how smooth and proficient you move through them.
Oh, thanks.
Well, because it saves you energy, but it also saves you time. And what we see in this field is, I've seen a shift in the women's field. I've noticed that it's shifted more and more towards a prowess as endurance athletes, and there has been a gap with some of the top athletes in terms of obstacle proficiency that you have filled probably better than anyone.
Yeah, I think that probably shows the most on beater. pretty much me, Rose, and Alyssa were the only ones in the top that didn't fail it.
And it's the 3 probably most obstacle proficient athletes in that field. And so what about the 8-foot wall? Did you have a weird technique for it? 8-foot box.
Oh, the new one, the box,
8-foot box.
Who is that?
Keep going. Don't worry about camp.
Our producer was just saying congratulations to Nicole over the mic.
Tell us about the 8-foot box.
8-foot box. You know, it surprisingly takes like a little bit out of you. I would say the first time I tried it in SoCal, I used more of like a muscle up technique where I just like grabbed on the rope and like lunged back for the bar, which took a lot of energy. And I was like, man, that's kind of hard. so I learned a better, more efficient way to do it. And I swing my leg over and just kind of like flop over it.
Right. You didn't get to see how anyone else fared with that. But we will get the recap because we're going to hear from Rose Wetzel next. So, Nicole, congratulations.
Thank you.
Props to you on a huge win today. I know you're stoked.
Which I called.
And looking forward to Alabama. It's going to be a good one. And Rose Wetzel coming on after this. Let's see you soon. Rose. Yeah, I'm really excited about Rose. And here's the thing for those of you at home who don't know, one of the best ever legends. Come here. Legends of the sport right here, making a comeback. And she said last night, this is going to be my day. I can run with any of these women. I've beaten all these women. I got this. We talked about this. And then it came to fruition. Not just because of your running ability that's back, but also because you're just a beast on obstacles.
Well, thanks. It's so good to be back out here and mixing it up, and I was able to run a clean race, and I think that really helped me out. And I felt good while running, and I don't know, things are finally coming together, and I just feel like it has taken so long, and since, having my baby a year and a half ago, but I just, I feel like it's just, I can't even describe how great it feels. And it's not just about me. I feel like I represent all of the moms out there who are trying to pursue their goals even after having a child. And I feel like last year I tried and just wasn't quite there, and now I feel like I've just proven that all my hard work is paying off, and that I'm back, and I'm just ready to mix it up and have a great year.
You told me that Natalie Miano gave you some advice. She told you that it would take a good solid year after you had your child to come back. Now that you've come back, we had a conversation, and I kind of laid it out. You're the first person in the history of the sport to be in her prime and be at the very top of the Spartan universe, then have a baby in that prime, and then have the ability and the guts and the determination to come back and try to be at that level again. Today you did that, and you're making me tear up because we talked about that.
It's the first time someone's come back from that and made the podium at a National Series event.
And
you've done it.
I had to work so hard. I mean, so hard. It's been a really great year in so many ways. My baby is so amazing. I love toddlerhood. I mean, she's just a riot. I had a hard time in the baby phase. I mean, I was waking up 5 times a night and nursing for a year, and I just really feel like I'm so grateful to Tim. Tim has been such an awesome support. He's always believed in me, even when it felt like a lot of other people didn't. I got dropped by my sponsor immediately after 4 years, the week of Christmas out of the blue, and I just had a really tough time for like a week there. And I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm going to embrace my circumstances, as a friend of mine said, and just go out and show the world that I can still do it.
And we talked last night about a lot of this is like new mental approach, and some of this comes from like your new meditation that you're doing daily, and how we have reassessed how to approach this competition and this training and this season. Take us through it.
So I just feel like as a parent, I have been forced to, in a good way, just really use my time well. I only have so much time outside of parenting. I'm working now again because I don't have enough, sponsors to cover my bills. Though I will say, Cliff Bar, you are awesome. Thank you for standing by me this whole time. You are amazing people. Get your Cliff products. They're amazing.
Wow, good plug.
But anyways, I will say that having a baby, I have to use my time well. So my race schedule this year is race when it matters and make it count. Okay, so I'm here, I'm doing the big races, I'm showing up, I'm ready to roll. And with my baby, she naps every day at 1 o'clock. So I basically, I listen to a little meditation app, and I take a nap when she's napping, and she's gotten me on a schedule, which I never really was that well on before. So, and I also just want to not just inspire the moms out there, but also just, the kids too. Like, my little daughter is watching me, and she saw me for the last year and a half wake up exhausted sometimes and go out. I moved when she was 2 months old to a new place, and she saw me wake up exhausted and go for a run in the cold by myself, even when it was really hard, even when I was running slow, wondering if I was ever going to feel fast again. And so I want to be a good role model for her.
Well, you're not only a great role model for her.
I'm like, I can't.
You're also a great role model for a lot of other people. It wasn't also, a lot of that. It was so much stuff that other things that happened, after your pregnancy. And I just want to, again, congratulate you for everything that you have done. That was an incredible performance today. And Rose Wetzel is back.
She is.
Thank you.
And I think it's a top 3 finish from Rose Wetzel, which I've encountered to say in such a long time at this level, which has been so exciting for me. And I think when you go and you rewatch this later, you're going to see how excited and how emotional we were over it. So congrats to you. Like, we're so happy.
Thank you so much, you guys. David, Kevin, I appreciate it.
You're the best. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And big year coming your way. So U.S. National Series 3rd place finisher in the women's, Rose Wetzel. This is huge. And so,
Thanks,
looking
guys.
forward to big things.
You got it.
Cool. Moving forward, guys, we're not too far away from the awards ceremony. That should be happening at about 10 o'clock. We're going to have a chat with Rebecca Hammond first. Second place at the North American Championships. Second place at the World Championships. And Rebecca, this is actually the first time that we've met in person. We've talked. Nice to officially meet you. Nice to meet you, too. Yeah, Doc.
Now, as a physician, what can you tell us about the battle that you had with Rose Wetzel going over that cargo net and the battle that you had from the tire, leading into the tire, the whole way through? That might have been one of the most epic finishes we've ever seen in the history of Spartan with you two athletes. And you were the young gun with the old guard coming together in that moment. It was fantastic. Tell us about it.
Well, I'm here to please. As a doctor, I guess my professional opinion is that we both came into the tires. I flipped the tires slightly faster than her, but she was still out before me. She started the net before me. Yeah. Somehow I got to the top faster, and then somehow she got to the bottom faster. I think I got my butt caught on that metal bar.
How many times did you roll once you came over the top? Twice?
Probably like 17 to
18 times.
Like that.
Okay, yeah. Good and dizzy. And she has that track speed.
Yeah,
so,
she certainly does.
So how did the race play out for you today in terms of what you were looking for and how you like to run? Did it happen how you wanted it, or were you just surprised by how fast everyone came out of the gates?
I don't know. I try not to have too many expectations. It is not my preference to fail obstacles, but sometimes it happens, and you just got to do some burpees.
You know the spear?
I got the spear.
Beater today, I believe, correct?
Beater today, and also just the regular swingy rings with the thing across.
The multi-rig.
Yeah, I failed the multi-rig. I haven't done that since like my first Spartan race.
Wow. And so
60 burpees today.
Where were you at that
60
time?
burpees.
You were up in like the top 3?
I don't know. I don't know.
It became such a mess after the spear throw in terms of like who was where.
At some point, I passed Alyssa, and I was sitting in 3rd, and then I failed something, and then Rose passed me. Yeah.
Must have been beater.
Must have been beater. Yeah, Rose passed me on beater.
And so then how did you track Rose all the way back down?
What do you mean? I just ran faster. So she's a higher class 800 runner than I am, 800 meter runner. I'm slightly faster in distance, I think. So I was able to close in that gap. But then when it came down to like a quick sprint at the finish, she was just like, able to redline it. And I was just like, oh, there goes Rose.
It was still an impressive showing. And so we have 2 huge races from you in the last year, North American Championships, World Championships. And you really emerged on the scene as like a factor, like one of the who's. And I know that you with 4th year medical school and probably residency next year.
So I am taking time off for residency because I kind of changed. I'm not sure what specialty I'm going to go into, and it'd be fun to like put some time into Spartan.
Yeah.
Because at the moment it's just like it's nuts. Like with school, like everything's coming together at the end. I have like all these projects to finish before graduation, so it's just like, oh my gosh, like I cannot wait until this is over so I can put a little more time into training.
Yeah, with that said, your fitness has got to be pretty impressive at this point for you to do 60 burpees and still be in a sprint finish for a podium spot today.
It's pretty amazing. And looking at this, like, how much time are you getting to devote to your training right now, or is this kind of like hanging on for dear life?
It's a little bit hanging on. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is. Like, I'm able to get some workouts in. Sometimes I can't, but I can do some things. And I started a month ago, and I've been working with Dennis Welch. He's been making some nice programming for me, and it's a nice like relief from med school because it's like time where I don't have to like think about things. I can just train. Yeah, so I mean, it's been tough, but getting through it. It's fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, I mean, moving forward, like, obviously you're not going to completely put, you know, medical profession on the back burner, but what kind of gap are you thinking about taking? A year?
I don't know. So, yeah, a year would be the, like, official answer. The longer you get out from medical school, the harder it is to start an internship. Internship is what they call the first year of residency. And because they're hiring you to like actually be a doctor, they want you to be sort of fresh. So it's still possible to take a lot of time off and then come back, but it gets a little bit harder to get a spot. So if I'm not picky about which residency I get into, if I like don't choose a competitive specialty or whatever, it's not too much of an issue, especially coming from Harvard. But still, it's something to keep in mind. But again, like I want to do what I want to do. I want to figure that out first. So
what's also more difficult is to come into the Spartan season at the very beginning, as opposed to halfway through like you did last year and towards the back end.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was so.
So
great.
you were able to come in under the radar and just explode on the scene at the most important races. Now you're not a secret to anybody. You were pegged on our radar to be a serious contender.
This is an IQ test.
Yes.
Look,
you're wired in.
Race. I got it.
No,
but,
not quite.
It's good. Look.
How do you feel about being able to go wire to wire now in the U.S. Championship Series, and then you know, God willing, West Virginia and Tahoe and beyond?
I mean, it's a lot of pressure. But I mean, all these other girls are used to it. You know, like that's what we deal with, and it's really fun and awesome to be a dark horse because nobody knows about you. You can just waltz in, and it's really fun, like, and surprise people. Now people are watching. People have expectations, and that's tough. But I mean, like, I console myself with the fact that there is no clear benefit to dwelling on that and just go in not thinking about it. There's no point in thinking about the pressure.
You run your own race. That's
it.
That's
exactly. That's all you can do.
But you have to respond to the strategy of the people around you at the same time.
Yeah, but like I feel like the animal in me, the instinct, I get overly cerebral about things, and in racing, that's not necessarily that great. So I just try and shut that off and just run my race.
Great. Well, you're doing a good job with that so far. We're looking forward to seeing you in Alabama. And
great job.
Yeah, great work. Great to meet you. Great to see you finally in person. Thanks so much for joining us.
Again, man.
Fourth place in the U.S. National Series, Race 1 in Jacksonville. It's Rebecca Hammond. We are ready to roll into the awards ceremony, which will be separate from this. Thank you all so much for joining us for Race 1 of the U.S. National Series. March 16th from Alabama. You're going to catch us here. It's going to be 7 a.m. live again. 7:30 start time for the men. An incredible showing by Ryan Kempson, just dominating the men's field. Nicole Miracle even more dominant on the women's side.
And all the new fresh faces coming in and making their name, like Kirk DeWitt and a lot of the other ladies.
And so March 16th again, Alabama. You guys got to tune in and watch it. In the meantime, as these people build their legacies.
I just wanted to come in and say goodbye.
Your final thoughts, David.
Watson, oh man, this guy is legacy in and of itself. We are.
That's a first.
Spartan legacies are being built today. You saw Hammond. You see Rose Wetzel and how hers is changing. Killian mentioned his. Kempson's just beginning his. And it's something that's been a tradition in Spartan for a long time.
Legacy means leaving a footprint so that someone else can look at it and say, you know what, that person did something amazing.
It's unforgettable. It just carries meaning and carries weight and emotion.
Legacy might be the most important thing out there, to leave this world a better place.
You know, you kind of measure yourself to those legacies and things that people accomplish that almost seem unreal.
It takes diligence, takes focus, takes all your heart.
A legacy in any facet of life is a pretty special thing, something that, you know, lives on beyond you and kind of above you.
One day, my son's gonna look at me, and when I'm gone, my legacy to him will be like, I'm a Spartan. I am a Spartan.